Chapter 1130. The appearance of Adam's true body quickly caused a huge commotion in the human defense line. This giant only needed to wave his fists, and he could easily pulverize the city walls of Yuzhong City. In just a short while, a section of the city wall that was about a kilometer in length was completely destroyed. Over 2,000 ordinary people, as well as a few dozen sword-bearers who couldn't escape in time, died under the giant's attacks. What do we do? Miss Xianyuan, do you have any way to deal with this giant? After Gu Xianyuan had saved Yuzhong City countless times, Sword Immortal Ling Su was already very used to leaving this kind of thing to Gu Xianyuan to deal with. He only needed to carry out Gu Xuanyuan's orders. In the eyes of outsiders, this was an extremely laughable thing. How could a mighty immortal sword-bearer listen to a spirit sword-bearer? However, this was so natural to Sword Immortal Ling Su. Master Sword Immortal Ling Su, how much time do we have left? How much time do we need before the super-dimensional wall protection system can be reactivated? Gu Xianyuan asked Sword Immortal Ling Su in return. 1.5 hours. Sword Immortal Ling Su looked at his own personal terminal. To be precise, there's 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 36 seconds left. Master True Lord Erlang, do you have a way to temporarily delay this giant for 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 34 seconds? Gu Xianyuan turned to True Lord Erlang and asked. Of course I have a way. True Lord Erlang first patted his own chest arrogantly. However, he quickly changed the topic, and a slightly guilty expression appeared on his face. But after that battle with you just now, I haven't completely recovered the power in my body. I might not be able to deal with this giant for the time being. After I rest for a few hours, I can kill him. Tui, even if your immortal power is full, it's all been sealed by the Ring of Perfection. Even if you rest for a few years, you still won't be able to kill him. Sword Immortal Ling Su was very displeased. Alright, True Lord Erlang, let's be honest. If the two of us join forces, do you think we can deal with this giant? Gu Xianyuan asked in an extremely cautious manner. You should know the answer to this question better than I do. True Monarch Erlang Yangjian smiled bitterly. Even if I still have my immortal power, it's impossible for me to destroy a 100-meter-long city wall in one strike. Your city wall has a large amount of dimensional alloy added into it. It's very difficult even for an Ian rank. I'm afraid that only Flood rank or Desolate rank Yuan Ko can do this. From the looks of it, this giant's strength should have reached the Desolation grade. Even if I were at my peak, I wouldn't be a match for him. On the other hand, if your sword element wasn't sealed by the Ring of Perfection, you might be able to hold him off for a while. Then what should we do? Sword Immortal Ling Su became even more flustered upon hearing Yang Jian's words. Retreat. Gu Xianyuan took in a deep breath, before saying resolutely and decisively, everyone, retreat back to the core area immediately, and give up the defense of the common area. What? Sword Immortal Ling Su was in disbelief upon hearing Gu Xuanyuan's words. Why, Miss Xianyuan, weren't you the one who encouraged everyone to defend the walls of the common area? Why are you telling us to retreat now, Miss Xianyuan? There's no way we can deal with this giant, and those cavalrymen outside the city wall are also preparing to charge in through the gap in the city wall. There's not much point in continuing to defend the city wall now, and it would only be a waste of human lives. It's better to rely on the dimensional barrier system in the core area for defense, Gu Xianyuan said calmly. But what's the point of retreating to the core area? The sword element in our bodies has all been sealed, and we can no longer inject sword element into the dimensional barrier system in the core area. Without the continuous infusion of sword element, the dimensional barrier system in the core area won't last for long. Sword Immortal Ling Su hurriedly explained. Are you sure about this? Gu Xianyuan asked solemnly. Are you sure that the sword element of the sword bearers protected by the dimensional barrier system in the core area has also been sealed? I'm sure about this. Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately nodded. We've left a portion of the sword bearers in the core area, and their sword element has also been completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection. Without the replenishment of sword element, the dimensional barrier system in the core area won't be able to hold out against such a large number of Yuan Ko's attacks for 30 minutes. Is this what all the sword bearers are saying? Are there any spirit sword bearers left in the core area? Gu Xianyuan pressed further. There isn't. Sword Immortal Ling Su's aura faltered. All the sword bearers above the famed sword rank have come out to fight. They aren't staying in the core area. Then I'll have to trouble Master Ling Su to immediately bring a spirit sword bearer into the core area and see if their sword element has been completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection, Gu Xianyuan quickly said to Sword Immortal Ling Su. Yes. Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't say anything else, and immediately teleported into the core area through a quantum teleportation spell formation. Not long after, he teleported back and said excitedly, Miss Xianyuan, how did you guess this? The spirit sword bearers and immortal sword bearers indeed haven't had their sword element completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection. The spirit sword bearers have returned to the ancient sword rank, while I've returned to the famed sword rank. What's so hard about that? Gu Xianyuan said with incomparable calm. The dimensional barrier system is a device made from imperial alloy, and it itself has the power of an empress sword bearer. It wouldn't be a problem for it to block a portion of the power of the Ring of Perfection with this kind of power. This is also why the dimensional barrier system itself still exists under the illumination of the Ring of Perfection. Most importantly, if the Ring of Perfection is really strong enough to seal the sword element of our sword bearers through the dimensional barrier system, then we humans would have perished countless times already. Gu Xianyuan looked at the Ring of Perfection above her head. Otherwise, as long as a few primordial grade Yuan Ko came to guard the Ring of Perfection in the sky, then without the replenishment of sword element, the super-dimensional barrier system would be broken through by Yuan Ko in just 2 or 3 days. All of the human base cities wouldn't be able to defend themselves, and we humans would have perished long ago. So I'm sure that the effects of the Ring of Perfection can be blocked by the dimensional barrier system. It's just that the dimensional barrier system in the core area is a little smaller, and its power is also a little weaker, so the effects of the Ring of Perfection still manage to seep through a portion. As long as we can hold on until the super-dimensional barrier system reactivates, then the effects of the Ring of Perfection will probably be completely blocked. Under the protection of the super-dimensional barrier system, all of us will be able to recover to our peak condition. When that time comes, it'll be a piece of cake to deal with those Yuan Ko who have infiltrated the normal area. I understand. Sword Immortal Ling Su was completely convinced by Gu Xuanyuan's words. Since you understand, then hurry up and organize the remaining people to return to the core area through the quantum teleportation array. But remember, once everyone returns through the quantum teleportation array, immediately destroy all the quantum teleportation arrays outside the core area. We can't allow a situation like Yuan Ko entering the core area through the quantum teleportation array again. Gu Xianyuan issued an order to Sword Immortal Ling Su, and Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately carried it out. Soon, all of the normal people and sword bearers began to enter the core area through the quantum teleportation array in an orderly manner. You're very decisive, I like it. Yang Jian appeared behind Gu Xianyuan. But what about the people in the normal area? If we retreat from the core area just like that, the normal people in the sanctuary will most likely suffer heavy losses. When did true Lord Erlang of the Heavenly Court start to care about the lives of the normal people? Besides, we've always been enemies with Yuan Ko and the humans, okay? Gu Xianyuan sneered. I, true Lord Erlang, am not as heartless as my uncle. Yang Jian smiled bitterly. I've stayed in the Guan River estuary for over 3,000 years, and I've also enjoyed 3,000 years of worship from the humans. I, Yang Jian, am the child of a human and an immortal, so how could I be heartless to the humans? But you're Yuan Ko now. Isn't Yuan Ko's ultimate goal to kill all of us humans? Gu Xianyuan said with disdain. There are also differences among Yuan Ko, and I'm different from my uncle and the others. True Lord Erlang shook his head. Forget it, it's my fault for being meddlesome. Since your heart is as hard as stone, then what's the point of me thinking about this? I'm not my adorable mother, that unlucky woman who's been a saint her entire life. Alexander the Great soon received a report from Yuan Ko, who was flying in the air and monitoring the entire city wall. The humans on the city wall were already beginning to retreat to the core area through the quantum teleportation array. The humans are beginning to retreat to the core area, Alexander the Great said excitedly. It looks like the humans really can't do anything to us this time. They can only hide in the core area and struggle to survive. But now is not the time to be too excited. Alexander the Great began to adjust his emotions and calm himself down. He turned to Ling Boli, who was beside him, and said, "The most important thing now is to break through the defenses of the core area. According to some of the information we have, the human's super turtle shell system can be reset in at least 1 day. According to the estimation you gave me, the human's super turtle shell system can be reset in at least an hour. We must break through the turtle shell system in the core area within an hour. As long as we can attack the core area, then Yuzhong City will be ours." Understood. Ling Boli nodded and closed her eyes, as if she was communicating with Adam about something. Soon, Adam stopped smashing the wall and turned to quickly advance toward the core area. "Warriors of Macedonia! Let's go!" Alexander the Great also shouted loudly. His most elite Macedonian phalanx also began to advance. They entered the ordinary area of Yuzhong City through the gap of a few kilometers that Adam had just opened. Chapter 1131. When the humans gave up the resistance on the city wall, and when the boundless Yuan Ko entered the normal area, the entire area fell into hell again. The one who caused the most destruction was naturally the giant Adam. He didn't care about the roads as he advanced in a straight line. All the tall buildings that blocked his way were all toppled by Adam using his own body, turning them into ruins. According to incomplete statistics, there were more than 300 high-rise buildings on the road in front of Adam. More than 20,000 families and all the wealth they had accumulated over a lifetime were destroyed in Adam's hand. These ordinary people who had been living a decent life instantly entered a stage of extreme poverty. They had nothing left. This feeling was like having 3 houses in Beijing, and then these houses were destroyed in an instant. Moreover, these were destroyed due to irresistible factors. You didn't even have the right to ask for compensation from the state. If there were some speculators among them, they would probably stand on the roofs of buildings that were hundreds of stories high and jump out of this terrible world. This was only the wealth destroyed by Adam's hands. Most of the wealth was destroyed by the other Yuan Ko who entered the normal area. But fortunately, because of the Ring of Logic, Yuan Ko's most powerful destructive ability was completely sealed. They could only use their own bodies to destroy. In this way, it was impossible to destroy a tall building like Adam. Although the property in the building would inevitably suffer great damage, at least the building itself was unharmed. This was a blessing in disguise. More fortunately, because Yuan Ko had lost his supernatural ability, he naturally couldn't dig 3 feet into the ground like before. The shelters that hid hundreds of meters underground were very safe, even safer than the sword-bearers in the core area. Because at this moment, these sword-bearers were separated by the core area's dimensional barrier system and looked at the giant in front of them with incomparable fear. This giant punched the dimensional barrier system like he did to the wall in the normal area, causing ripples in the dimensional barrier system. All the sword-bearers looked nervously at the monitor in front of them, which showed the energy value of the dimensional barrier system. After Gu Xianyuan subdued Kong Na, the humans immediately went to the wall to defend and did not fully restore the dimensional barrier system's energy. As a result, when the Ring of Logic was activated, the core area's dimensional barrier system was still in a damaged state, with only 43.8% of its energy remaining. And every time this giant atom hammered the dimensional barrier system, it would cause about 0.25% of its energy loss. This speed was not much slower than Kong Na's. According to this speed, the core area's dimensional barrier system would completely collapse in less than 20 minutes. At that time, there would still be 50 minutes before the super-dimensional barrier system restarted. These 50 minutes were enough for the giant to destroy the core area of the super-dimensional barrier system. At that time, Yuzhong City would really be finished. Who would have thought that hiding in the core area would only result in a slow death? Sword Immortal Ling Su looked at the tottering dimensional barrier system in front of him with a deathly expression. He looked around in a panic, wanting to discuss with Gu Xianyuan if there was any other way. Of course, what made Sword Immortal Ling Su feel extremely guilty was that he actually didn't find any trace of Gu Xianyuan. Sword Immortal Ling Su hurriedly asked the others, and the answer he received was that Gu Xianyuan didn't use the quantum teleportation spell formation to return to the core area. Instead, she directly jumped off the city wall and ran to the normal area. What is she doing in the normal area at this time? Sword Immortal Ling Su's expression was as ugly as if his mother had died. She's actually still sleeping. At this time, in the children's section of a certain super-large shopping mall in the normal area, Kong Na, who was wearing cute pajamas and revealing her two thick little legs, was sleeping soundly on the bed while hugging a little teddy bear doll. As the saying went, eat and sleep, eat and sleep. After Kong Na ate her fill of the high-purity nuclear fuel rod, she immediately became drowsy, and in the end, she directly fainted. No matter how Gu Xianyuan called out to her, she was unable to wake up. At that time, the battle on the city wall was the most urgent, and Gu Xianyuan couldn't waste too much time on Kong Na. After taking her away from the core area, she could only temporarily place her here and let her sleep. In any case, her true form was a dragon, and presumably, no blind Yuan Ko would dare to bully a dragon. When Adam appeared, Gu Xianyuan knew that he wouldn't be able to stop him with just his own strength, and the only one who could compete with Adam in terms of physical strength was the giant dragon Kangana, whose physical strength was equally terrifying. Thus, Gu Xianyuan didn't follow the main group back to the core area, and instead immediately went to find Kong Na. But right now, Kong Na was still sleeping very soundly, and it looked like there was no chance of waking her up. Even an ordinary person would need 6 to 7 hours of sleep before they would naturally wake up, and according to legend, a giant dragon could sleep for a few hundred years. This time, even if Kong Na slept until she died without waking up, Gu Xianyuan didn't find it strange at all. But now, Gu Xianyuan had to think of a way to wake Kong Na up, and this was a gargantuan problem. Previously, Gu Xianyuan had already tried all kinds of conventional methods. Even if Gu Xianyuan had a 1000 decibels loudspeaker aimed at Kong Na's ear, or even made Kong Na's little face turn purple, she still couldn't wake up this sleeping little female dragon in the slightest. Lady Xianyuan's sword. Lady Immortal Slaying Sword. Do you know of any way to wake up this damned female dragon? In the end, Gu Xianyuan could only helplessly ask her two sword maidens. Because her sword essence had been sealed once again, she lost contact with most of her sword maidens once more. Only the Immortal Slaying Sword and Xianyuan Sword, these two sword maidens with great backgrounds, could maintain communication with Gu Xianyuan even after her sword essence had disappeared. Or perhaps it should be said that they were like real humans, talking to whomever they liked, and didn't need to borrow the sword essence of the wielder at all. Dragons! Xianyuan's sword smacked its own mouth. In the era when I was awe-inspiring, Humans had already formed an alliance with dragons, using dragons as the price of their totems in exchange for the dragons' full support for humans. At that time, dragons were rare and protected animals. Even I didn't dare to kill a dragon. Otherwise, wouldn't that bastard Gongsun Xianyuan soak me in salt water for a few hundred years? That's why I don't know much about the dragon race. You can go ask a mortal slaying sword. In her era, killing dragons was like killing dogs. Even if there weren't 1,000 dragons that died by a mortal slaying sword's hands, there were at least 10,000. She definitely knows a lot about the dragon race. Xianyuan's sword immediately kicked the ball to a mortal slaying sword's feet. I did indeed kill a lot of dragons. I also know a lot about the dragon race. The Zhu Xian sword did not try to avoid it. Instead, it admitted it honestly. However, I have only killed the Eastern dragon race. I have never killed a Western dragon race like her. I don't know if this method will work on the Western dragon race. What method? Hearing Immortal Slaying Sword's words, the anxiety in Gu Xuanyuan's heart instantly eased a little. As long as there was a method, it was fine. She was afraid that there wasn't any other way. To the Eastern dragon race, the most important thing is its reverse scale. For any sleeping giant dragon, the moment any creature dares to touch its reverse scale, this giant dragon will immediately awaken and mercilessly slaughter those who touch its reverse scale, Immortal Slaying Sword Lady said indifferently. The Immortal Slaying Sword Lady said calmly, "If she's from the Eastern Dragon clan, I'll think of a way to find her reverse scale. But she's a Western dragon, so I don't know if this method will be effective. I'm not even sure if Western dragons have reverse scales." They do. The Western dragon race has a reverse scale, Gu Xianyuan said with absolute certainty. She recalled the scene of her battle with Dark Dragon King Dark Shunida in the Wudong Apex Instance Dungeon. Dark Shunida had once personally told Gohan that he had a reverse scale, and Gohan also vaguely remembered that the immortal sword rank sword wielder who appeared and killed Shunida had pierced through Dark Shunida's reverse scale with one strike, causing Dark Shunida to be instantly killed by his opponent. Where is the dragon race's reverse scale? Gu Xianyuan asked impatiently. Time didn't allow her to wait any longer. That's not necessarily true, Immortal Slaying Sword said indifferently. You just said that the sword wielder instantly killed the Dark Dragon King by attacking the dragon race's reverse scale. The reverse scale is so important to the dragon race. It's as important as their lives. So the first priority for all dragons is to find a way to hide and protect their reverse scale. The reverse scale in dragon form is fixed on their neck, and they have no way of moving it. But it's different when they transform into human form. They can hide their inner thoughts anywhere in their body, and the concealment is no different from their real body. If you want to find the location of the reverse scale, you can only explore it one by one. There's no better way. Oh, so that's how it is. Xianyuan's sword suddenly became excited, and continued egging Gu Xianyuan on. Hurry up and strip this little female dragon naked, then search every part of her body. That little hill. That little hole. Don't let go of anything. Maybe her reverse scale is hidden in that hole. Wah! I can't take it anymore. Why do I get so excited just thinking about this? Xianyuan's sword's voice was rough, like some perverted infatuated girl. Chapter 1132. If there was a third person beside Gu Xianyuan and Kong Na at this time, he would definitely see a very exciting scene. A beautiful girl was undressing an extremely cute little loli. After taking off all her clothes, the beautiful girl's hands were constantly groping the little loli's body, almost touching every part of the little loli's skin. This scene, oh my god! I can't take it anymore. Where is the medic? My health bar is empty. How is it? Did you find her reverse scale? Xianyuan's sword asked with concern. No. Gu Xianyuan shook her head. No, I've stimulated every part of Kong Na's body with sword energy, but Kong Na didn't have any reaction. It seems like Kong Na's reverse scale isn't in these places. Then it must be in some private places. Xian Yuan's sword became more and more excited. Hurry up and touch it! Touch it! This. Gu Xianyuan couldn't help but hesitate. If it was just touching the outer skin, it would be fine. This female dragon wouldn't care about this. But if she really touched Kong Na's private parts, what would she do when this little female dragon wakes up and falls out with her? One must know that Gu Xianyuan attacked Kong Na's reverse scale to wake Kong Na up. Kong Na would definitely know that Gu Xianyuan touched her reverse scale. This was something that couldn't be hidden. Think about it. Apart from those private parts, is there any place that I haven't touched? Gu Xianyuan decided to recall in her mind again. If she really couldn't find any other parts that she hadn't touched, then Gu Xianyuan could only follow Xian Yuan's sword's terrible suggestion and go deep into some parts of Kong Na's body to stimulate it. That's right. I don't think I've touched that place yet. This memory didn't matter. Gu Xianyuan really remembered a place that she had never touched before. 5%. 4. 823%. 4. 625%. In the core area, whether it was a swordsman or a normal person with a gun, they all looked at the display of the dimensional wall in front of them in despair. At this time, the core area's dimensional wall only had less than 625% energy left. The dimensional wall would shatter at this moment. Open the last quantum transmission array and prepare for the worst. Gu Xianyuan wasn't by his side, and the highest commander in the core region had become Sword Immortal Ling Su. Although Sword Immortal Ling Su was extremely unwilling, he had no choice but to make this difficult decision. The so-called worst-case scenario was for all the survivors to escape from Yuzhang City, and then launch an expedition to Yanjing City, and finally hide in Yanjing City. Among all the quantum teleportation arrays in Yuzhang City, there was one that led directly to an emergency transit station. There were many supplies and vehicles hidden in the emergency transit station for the people of Yuzhang City to escape to Yanjing City. However, Sword Immortal Ling Su was extremely worried. If the 40 million residents of Yuzhang City all fled to Yanjing City at the same time, how many of them would make it to Yanjing City alive? This number might not even reach 4 million, but if Yuan Ko and the others were to carry out layers upon layers of attacks, even 400,000 people might not be enough. 886%. 633%. At this time, the dimensional wall in the core region of Yuzhang City only had a sliver of HP left. Everyone didn't have any hope of defending Yuzhang City. At this time, Sword Immortal Ling Su also received a report from his subordinate. The last quantum teleportation array had been fully activated, and the first batch of sword bearers had already entered the transit station. They were currently taking over the defense of the transit station. The transit station was in good condition and could handle the transit work for the entire Yuzhang City. Dear citizens of Yuzhang City, I am the chairman of Yuzhang City's Sword Committee, Sword Immortal Ling Su, Hua Ling Su. Sword Immortal Ling Su connected to all the television screens in the sanctuary through the reporters behind him. Then, all the citizens who were nervously watching the battle found that the images of the battle had disappeared, and in their place was Sword Immortal Ling Su's weak and powerless face. Yesterday, our Yuzhang City encountered the most difficult time in the last 100 years. Because of the negligence of me and the Sword Committee, a fatal error occurred in the super-dimensional wall system. As a result, we were unable to replenish the sword essence. In the end, it was breached by Yuan Ko yesterday, and our Yuzhang City has since faced a huge threat. At the same time, this is also the most touching moment for me, Sword Immortal Ling Su. Even after losing the protection of the super-dimensional wall system, the people of Yuzhang City still burst forth with the most tenacious battle strength. Whether it be sword bearers, sword maidens, or ordinary citizens, we are fearless and are not stingy with our lives. We have always stood at the forefront of the battle against Yuan Ko, and we have given our last bit of strength to defend our home. In the previous battle, more than 1,500 sword-bearers have died in battle. There are also more than 30,000 brave ordinary people who, without any training, resolutely picked up the old guns in their hands and fired bullets filled with their own anger at these shameless Yuan Ko. They used their lives to prove that they are worthy of being called the people of Yuzhong City. All of them are the heroes of our Yuzhong City. If we were given another 40 minutes, as long as we had 40 minutes, we would be able to survive this disaster and protect our home. But from the looks of it, we don't have 40 minutes left. Right now, the core area's dimensional barrier has less than 0.876% of its energy left. In 20 seconds, the core area's dimensional barrier will collapse, and the super-dimensional barrier system's core control area will be destroyed. We've lost the capital to continue resisting, and we've also lost the hope to do so. Staying here will only lead to death. Therefore, I, Sword Immortal Ling Su, represent the Sword Committee, the Senate, all sword bearers, all the people of Yuzhong City, and finally, on behalf of the entire Yuzhong Bay City, to make a difficult decision. I hereby announce that from now on, Yuzhong City will enter its final state. Everyone, please use the quantum teleportation array that has already been opened to go to our final transfer station. From there, set off for Yanjing City, which represents hope. When he said the last sentence, although Sword Immortal Ling Su's voice was still steady and smooth, everyone could hear the sorrow and despair in his voice. This was not a simple cry. This was the sound of a dying country, the sound of Yuzhong City's demise. Therefore, when Sword Immortal Ling Su said this, many people, including the sword bearers and ordinary people, could no longer suppress their emotions. They knelt on the ground and began to wail loudly. They didn't want to leave their homes at all. They also knew that once they set foot on this transfer path, there was a high chance that they would die on this endless road. However, they had no other choice. Staying in Yuzhong City would also lead to death. Mr. Chairman, we need your permission to connect the quantum teleportation array of the sanctuary to the transfer station's quantum teleportation array. A subordinate said to Sword Immortal Ling Su. This was a very cruel fact. This meant that Sword Immortal Ling Su was going to personally open the path to Yuzhong City's demise. 167%. Sword Immortal Ling Su heaved a final forlorn sigh as he looked at the numbers on the monitor. This final bit of energy was already unable to withstand the giant's attack. The dimensional barrier around the core region was about to shatter in the next second, and he had no time to hesitate. Activate. Just as Sword Immortal Ling Su was about to confirm the order through his personal terminal, he suddenly heard a deafening sound. This sound was very familiar. It was so familiar that it reminded Sword Immortal Ling Su of the fear he felt when he was dominated by a certain giant dragon yesterday. A lightning dragon? Sword Immortal Ling Su raised his head and saw that the giant white dragon from yesterday had once again appeared in the sky above Yuzhong City. It's over. Yuzhong City is really finished this time. Now that the flood-level Yuan Ko lightning dragon has returned. Coupled with this terrifying giant dragon, Yuzhong City is really finished. Yuzhong City has no future. When most people saw the lightning dragon appear, their hearts that were already filled with despair were forcibly stuffed with despair. With 2 flood-level Yuan Ko attacking Yuzhong City, there was no reason for Yuzhong City to survive. However, the moment he saw the lightning dragon, a faint glimmer of hope appeared in Sword Immortal Ling Su's heart. The other sword bearers didn't know, but Sword Immortal Ling Su knew very well that Gu Xianyuan had once told him that she had already subdued the lightning dragon. The lightning dragon was no longer a threat to Yuzhong City. Sword Immortal Ling Su even specially approved to give more than half of the high-purity nuclear fuel rods to this lightning dragon as food. Now that this lightning dragon had appeared here, Was it possible that not only was it not a disaster for Yuzhong City, but it was also a turning point for Yuzhong City to welcome a new life? Look, who is that person riding on the lightning dragon? It was also at this moment that a sharp-eyed sword-bearer discovered something different about this lightning dragon. At this moment, on the back of this lightning dragon, there was a human in white standing on it as if it was flat ground. It was as if the thing under his feet was not a terrifying giant dragon at all. It's Miss Xianyuan. It's Miss Xianyuan. The sharp-eyed sword-bearer quickly recognized the human's appearance. Who else could it be but Gu Xianyuan, who had just disappeared for dozens of minutes? But why? Why is Miss Xianyuan standing on the back of that giant dragon? What on earth happened? Many people had doubts in their hearts, but this doubt was quickly answered. Because in the next second, this powerful lightning dragon pounced on Giant Adam, who was still destroying the dimensional barrier. Dragon Knight. Miss Xianyuan is a Dragon Knight. Another sword-bearer suddenly shouted loudly and excitedly, and the term Dragon Knight also quickly spread around, so that in an instant, almost everyone was muttering the words Dragon Knight. The body of the giant dragon slammed into Adam's body, directly knocking Adam away from the dimensional barrier. The bodies of the two giant beasts collided, flattening a large area of houses, but at the same time, it also protected the crumbling dimensional barrier that was on the verge of collapse. Great, it's really her. Seeing this scene, Sword Immortal Ling Su let out a sigh of relief, then quickly picked up the microphone and said to all the viewers watching the live broadcast, "Dear citizens, please allow me to temporarily take back my decision just now. Hope has not been completely lost. We still have the capital to fight to the last moment. We still have Dragon Knight Miss Xianyuan." Chapter 1133. There was nothing much to say. Be it human eyes or camera lenses, everything was focused on the battle outside the core area. At this moment, the two gigantic beasts crawled up from the ground. They were about a kilometer away from each other, and they were both staring at each other. A huge battle was about to break out. One of the two behemoths was a snow-white winged dragon, while the other was a humanoid giant. This scene was inexplicably similar to a series of sci-fi dramas from before the apocalypse. However, in that sci-fi series, the side of justice was Ultraman in human form, and the side of evil was a monster-like dragon. However, at this moment, the roles of justice and evil were reversed. The monsters became the last line of defense to protect humans, and the humanoid Ultraman, Yuan Ko, was the killer who was trying to destroy the last trace of hope for humans. Oh! Adam let out a cry that no one could understand, and suddenly charged towards Kong Na, who was in front of him. Kana didn't want to be outdone. After letting out a dragon roar, the two gigantic beasts collided again. The force was so great that even the sword-bearers in the core area felt waves of violent tremors. What the hell is this white dragon doing? Isn't she on our side? Why is she attacking Adam? At this moment, Quetzalcoatl, Alexander the Great, and Yuan Ko's troops also arrived near the core area, and they also saw the two gigantic beasts with their own eyes. They also saw the scene of the white dragon knocking Adam away and the two gigantic beasts fighting. They were very dissatisfied and puzzled. That dragon is... After seeing the appearance of the white lightning dragon, Quetzalcoatl covered his mouth and exclaimed, "Oh my God! Isn't this Kana? I thought she died more than 800 years ago." "You know this dragon?" Alexander the Great looked at Quetzalcoatl in surprise. "Of course, her name is Kana, and she was one of my best friends in the original world. She was always so cute and adorable. Among the 5 of us, only Kana and I came to this world. I didn't expect her to still be alive," Quetzalcoatl said excitedly. Quetzalcoatl said excitedly, and the pair of world-class opies on his chest swayed like a pair of rattle drums. "According to my intelligence, this white dragon should be the one that destroyed Yuzhong City's super-dimensional protection system a few days ago, Yuan Ko." Alexander the Great took out a few photos from his pocket. All the photos were of Kong Na's lightning continuously consuming Yuzhang City's super-dimensional wall system. Haven't you seen these photos? Why did you only realize now that this dragon is your friend? I was captured at the last minute, so I can't be bothered to pay attention to this. Quetzalcoatl shook his head helplessly. But it's good that you know this dragon. I'll tell her to cooperate with us and not cause us any trouble. We don't have much time left. Alessandra said very nervously. There were only about 30 minutes left before the super-dimensional wall system reset. He didn't want anything to go wrong at the last moment and end up trapped in the dimensional wall system by the humans. How do you want me to talk to her? Quetzalcoatl shook his opie helplessly. All our powers are sealed now. I don't even have the power to fly. It's impossible for me to transmit my voice to Kong Na. Then how did Kong Na transform? Our people didn't find any trace of her in the periphery. She should have been hiding in the ordinary area and suddenly appeared after transforming. Why does she have the ability to transform back into her dragon form? Alexander the Great asked in confusion. You ask me? Who should I ask? Quetzalcoatl could only continue to shake her world-class opie. But I guess it's probably related to Kong Na's level. Kong Na is flood level, and I am only Ian level. The Ring of Perfection can only partially seal the power of a flood level, but it can completely seal an Ian level like me. Maybe this is why Kong Na can transform. Then according to you, the two of us can only wait for the result of the battle between these two giant beasts. Alexander the Great said unwillingly. He really didn't like the feeling of not being able to control his own fate. Of course not. Quetzalcoatl shook his head. Then, between your friend Kong Na and Adam, who do you think will win in the end? Alexander the Great asked impatiently. I think there is an 80% chance that Adam will win in the end. Quetzalcoatl finally said a piece of good news that made Alexander the Great let out a sigh of relief. Why do you say that? Is there any proof? Alexander the Great asked again. It's very simple. Kong Na is a lightning attribute dragon. Her physical ability is actually not strong. Her real strength is the lightning that she can control. But now that all the supernatural powers have been sealed by the Ring of Perfection, most of Kong Na's combat power has also been sealed. According to Ling Boli, Adam is the purest human, and all the power in his body is the power of nature. There is nothing that goes against the Ring of Perfection. These two people are both flood levels. Kong Na's power is mostly sealed, but Adam's power is not sealed at all. Under such circumstances, the only one who can win is Adam, Quetzalcoatl said with certainty. P.S. Fixed a setting here. Previously, it was said that the Ring of Perfection cannot seal the power of a flood-level Yuan Ko. Now, it can partially seal the power of a flood-level Yuan Ko. The power of an Emperor sword wielder depends on the strength of the wielder. If that's the case, Alexander touched the ruby on the hilt of his long sword and waved his long sword forward. He shouted to the troops behind him, "Warriors! Charge!" It was just as Quetzalcoatl had predicted. When Kong Na and Adam clashed, Kong Na was at a slight disadvantage because Adam's physical strength was unexpectedly strong. There was no technique involved in the battle between Kana and Adam. Kana and Adam were like two sumo wrestlers hugging each other. Their body sizes were exactly the same, and it could even be said that Kana's body was slightly larger than Adam's. However, Kong Na did not expect Adam's physical strength to be so strong. In the beginning, the two giant beasts were still in a stalemate, but Kong Na soon felt that her strength was disappearing. At the same time, Adam's strength was constantly increasing. Kong Na was gradually pushed back by Adam. She knocked over a dozen buildings in a row. Then, Adam hugged Kong Na's legs and threw Kong Na away. Kong Na's huge body fell to the ground, and a few more buildings were completely destroyed. Oh no. What great strength! Kong Na stood up from the ground with some effort and murmured at the same time. At this time, after throwing Kong Na away, Adam did not pay attention to Kong Na. Instead, he chose to continue advancing toward the core area's dimensional wall. He wanted to destroy the dimensional wall system. Kong Na, remember our agreement. You must hold this giant back. Dragon Knight Gu Xianyuan appeared on Kong Na's head and said to her, Oh no. Kong Na must keep her promise. Connor tapped her dragon head and flapped her wings. With lightning speed, she once again appeared in Adam's life. Like playing billiards, she knocked Adam out of the room. Once again, she protected the dimensional barrier of the core zone at the critical moment. Forget it, Adam. Let's get rid of this female dragon first. On the rooftop of a building in the distance, Ling Boli calmly looked at the battlefield in front of her. At the same time, she issued a series of orders to Adam. After receiving Ling Boli's orders, Adam gave up on his original target. Instead, he pushed Kong Na, who had just knocked him away. Then, he lifted his forehead and directly hit Kong Na's dragon mouth. So painful. Kong Na was about to cry from the pain. Her little dragon face was squeezed together like a little loli with tears all over her face. But this was only the beginning of Kong Na's suffering. Next, Adam displayed a complete set of combo techniques to Kong Na. When Kong Na was in pain, his fist directly hit Kong Na's fragile belly. At the same time, Adam's knee hit Kong Na's tail. Just as Kong Na was about to counterattack, Adam fiercely hit her head with a karate chop. What was worse was that Adam actually stepped on Kong Na's tail. The whole set of tools was so painful that this little lowly female dragon felt sore all over her body. She almost fainted from the pain. What was even more frightening was that Adam finally pulled out 2 alloy particle knives from his thighs. These 2 alloy particle knives were originally equipment used by the gospel warriors of the new era. Who would have thought that Adam would actually hide one of them in the fat of his thighs, giving Kong Na and Gu Xianyuan the illusion that Adam wasn't carrying any weapons. In the end, this illusion almost cost Kong Na her life. While she was in a daze, the 2 daggers simultaneously sliced at Kong Na's tail. In the end, Kong Na's pitiful white tail was directly sliced off by Adam. Then, Adam conveniently used it as a rope to strangle Kong Na's neck. This Adam actually wanted to strangle a little female dragon to death while she was still alive. I can't. Kong Na's face was almost indistinguishable from her tears and mucus. The intense pain caused Kong Na to be unable to even finish the words, I can't. Kong Na was about to be KO'd by Adam's flurry of attacks. Right now, the only one who can save Kong Na is me. Gu Xianyuan was also stunned by Adam's series of impeccable combo attacks. But very quickly, Gu Xianyuan regained her composure. She knew that if she didn't think of a way to save Kong Na, then Kong Na's hard-won battle power would die in Adam's hands. Looks like I can only take the risk. Just as Gu Xianyuan was about to take the risk to save Kong Na, a sudden unforeseen event occurred. Not far away, the dimensional barrier of the core area shattered unexpectedly. Crap. I miscalculated a little. Gu Xianyuan looked at the core area with some annoyance. Although she and Kong Na had done their best to delay Adam, they had forgotten that there was also a group of powerful Yuan Ko army under Alexander. Although Alexander's army didn't have the terrifying battle power of Adam, for the core area's dimensional barrier that only had a little more than 0.1% of its energy left, this army was already enough. Alexander's army added the final blow, completely shattering the core area's dimensional barrier. Now, the last safe place in Yuzhang City had already been torn apart by Yuan Ko's own clothes, exposing it to the enemy's swords. Chapter 1134. Chairman, what do we do now? The people around Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately asked nervously when they saw the dimensional barrier collapsing. 36 minutes left. Sword Immortal Ling Su glanced at his personal terminal. As long as they could hold on for another 36 minutes and protect the control core of the super-dimensional barrier system, then there would still be hope for humanity to defend Yuzhong City. At this time, Sword Immortal Ling Su was faced with two choices. He could either stay and defend the core to the death, or lead the sword bearers and humanity to retreat immediately. If he chose the latter, it would mean that most of the sword bearers present could safely retreat to the transit station. But if he chose the former, a successful defense would naturally be a good thing. But if the defense failed, the sword bearers mixed with Yuan Ko and the others would definitely not be able to safely return to the vicinity of the quantum teleportation arrays. Even if they could reach the quantum teleportation arrays, Sword Immortal Ling Su would not activate these quantum teleportation arrays. Otherwise, Yuan Ko would also be able to use the quantum teleportation arrays to enter Yuzhong City's transit station. If that happened, then everything would be over. The decision that Sword Immortal Ling Su made now was a decision that concerned the future of the entire Yuzhong City. There was no room for carelessness or mistakes. Continue fighting. Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't have to think for too long before he made his decision. He immediately used the livestream system to cheer on all the normal humans standing on the city wall. He told them that they only needed to hold on for another 36 minutes, and then the humans would be able to achieve the final victory. Their chances of survival were as high as 1 in 2. Otherwise, once they and their families embarked on the journey to Yanjing City, their chances of survival would be less than 1 in 10. Sword Immortal Ling Su used this method to boost the morale of the ordinary people while secretly instructing his trusted subordinates to send most of the sword bearers to a few specific quantum teleportation arrays to be teleported to the transit station. This could be considered as Sword Immortal Ling Su's backup plan. If the defense of the core region failed, then the most important sword bearers of humanity would still be able to survive. As for the lives of the ordinary people, Sword Immortal Ling Su would be unable to help even if he wanted to. In the end, this was still the apocalypse where power reigned supreme. Perhaps it was possible to protect the weak for a moment of righteousness, but when faced with a life and death situation, where there's life, there's hope was the correct choice. Whether in terms of height, thickness, or sturdiness, the city walls of the core area were far inferior to the outermost city walls of Yuzhong City. The effect of sniping directly from the city walls was not very good. In just a few minutes, the first batch of Yuan Ko had already climbed up the city walls of the core area. Once again, a bloody battle broke out between the humans and the Yuan Ko on the city walls. At the same time, on the other side, an important battle was also going on. Kong Na's neck was being pulled tighter and tighter by Kong Na's tail. Gradually, she found it difficult to breathe, and the strength of her limbs' struggles was far less than before. It was obvious that Kong Na was in a terrible state. If Kong Na didn't recover her breath soon, this little female dragon might die on her own tail. And Adam also saw this point. The strength exerted by his arms became stronger, and Kong Na's tail that had been cut off was pulled to the limit by Adam. Here, Kong Na's tail was very sturdy and durable, but it was precisely because of this sturdiness that it caused its owner to be unable to breathe. Just at this critical moment, a small figure suddenly appeared in Adam's eyes. This figure had appeared on Kong Na's tail without him noticing. Looking at it as a whole, Kong Na's tail was actually very thin, even thinner than a monkey's tail. But looking at it from Gu Xian Yuan's angle, Kong Na's tail was very thick. Stepping on it was like stepping on the roof of a bus. As long as one was brave enough, even an ordinary person could run along Kong Na's tail, not to mention an expert like Gu Xian Yuan. Gu Xian Yuan ran all the way to the middle of Kong Na's tail. This was the place where Kong Na's tail was pulled the tightest, and also the place where it was the easiest to cut off. Gu Xian Yuan's intention was very obvious. He wanted to cut off Kong Na's tail here for the second time, and thus get rid of Kong Na's current predicament. Chaos Sky Splitter. Without saying anything else, Gu Xian Yuan used the first move of the Chaos Sword art. This was also one of the moves with the strongest single-target killing ability in the Chaos Sword art. In the game, Gohan had once used this move to defeat a spirit sword wielder without using his sword essence, so it could be seen how powerful this move was. Moreover, the sword that Gu Xianyuan was holding wasn't an ordinary sword mistress, but a spirit sword wielder's immortal slayer sword. This sword mistress was something that even an emperor sword wielder was afraid of. The sharpness of the sword could easily break through the defense of a universe-level Yuan Ko, so Gu Xianyuan was very confident that she could cut off Kong Na's tail in one move. However, Gu Xianyuan still failed in the end. The Immortal Slayer sword indeed pierced through Kong Na's tail very easily, but when Gu Xianyuan wanted to use Chaos Sky Splitter to cut off the entire tail, a numbing electric current passed through Kong Na's tail and the Immortal Slayer sword into Gu Xianyuan's body, causing Gu Xianyuan to instantly enter a state of numbness. The Chaos Sky Splitter that wasn't completely used also naturally ended. This scene couldn't help but remind Gu Xian of the battle between the Wangshu Sword Goddess and Kong Na. At that time, the Wangshu Sword Goddess's condition was even more miserable than Gu Xianyuan's. She was continuously electrocuted by Kong Na and was forever trapped in a state of numbness. If it wasn't for the Tiger Roar Sword Spirit's desperate attack that sent the Wangshu Sword Goddess flying, the Wangshu Sword Goddess would have already been broken in Kong Na's hands. I understand now. The Ring of Perfection is unable to completely seal Kong Na's power, so there is still a portion of electric current hidden deep within Kong Na's body. However, this portion of electric current is too small, so small that Kong Na can't even mobilize it. I didn't expect it to come at a time like this. Gu Xianyuan quickly understood the origin of the electric current in Kong Na's tail and felt a sense of helplessness in her heart. As long as it was a metal object, it would conduct electricity. Even the Immortal Execution Sword was no exception. If she had sword essence in her body, she could use it to isolate these electric currents. However, she didn't have any sword essence to use now. If she continued to use the Immortal Execution Sword to slice off Kong Na's tail, then being electrocuted would be unavoidable. Looks like I can't use the Immortal Execution Sword anymore. Gu Xianyuan hesitated for a moment before using her left hand to pull out a pitch-black sword lady from the scabbard at her waist. This was the first time this sword lady had revealed herself today. Juzi, I wonder if you have the ability to slice through Kong Na's tail. At this moment, Gu Xianyuan took out her famed sword lady's Juzi sword. There was only one reason why Gu Xianyuan took out the Juzi sword. That was because the Juzi sword wasn't like the majority of the other sword ladies, which were all forged from various metals. The biggest difference between the Juzi sword and the other sword ladies was that it wasn't made of metal. Instead, it was the trunk of the ancient Fusang tree. To put it bluntly, it was just a piece of wood. Wood naturally couldn't conduct electricity, so if Gu Xianyuan used the Juzi sword, she could successfully avoid the paralyzing effect of the electric currents in Kong Na's tail. But then there was another problem. Could a wooden longsword like the Juzi sword really have the ability to cut through the tail of a flood-level dragon? Forget it. I'll just treat a dead dragon as a living dragon. Gu Xianyuan held the Juzi sword in her left hand and waved it in the air a few times. She wanted to get used to this terrible feeling. It couldn't be helped. Although Gu Xianyuan had the ability to use dual swords, she mainly used her right hand when using the sword. Using the sword with her left hand was still a bit awkward. This was also something that couldn't be helped. Who let the Immortal Execution Sword and Gu Xianyuan's right hand firmly fuse together. Gu Xianyuan had no choice but to use her left hand to use the sword. Many of Gu Xianyuan's sword techniques were very awkward and she wasn't used to it. Kong Na's situation was getting worse. Gu Xianyuan didn't have much time to practice. After she felt a little bit, she gritted her teeth and directly slashed down with the Juzi sword in her hand. Gu Xianyuan had already made sufficient preparations. She was prepared to deal with the huge resistance of cutting into Kong Na's tail. After all, the Juzi sword was a wooden sword. What Gu Xianyuan didn't expect was that Kong Na's tail was like nothing in front of the Juzi sword. Gu Xianyuan very easily slashed the entire Juzi sword into Kong Na's tail. At the same time, there really wasn't any electric currents to interfere with Gu Xianyuan's battle. Primal chaos split the heavens. Gu Xianyuan no longer had any scruples. She used the primal chaos split the heavens in an instant. Kong Na's sturdy and durable tail was immediately broken. At the moment when the tail was broken, Kong Na's body was pushed away by the huge reaction force. She crashed into a dozen tall buildings and completely destroyed them. However, the tail that was strangling her neck was finally released. Kong Na suddenly opened her dragon mouth and took a dozen deep breaths of air, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. Oh no! I almost died. Although that was what Kong Na said, her danger was actually over. But the real danger now was Gu Xianyuan. Gu Xianyuan, who was originally standing on Kong Na's tail, flew out like Kong Na the moment her tail was broken. It must be known that Kong Na's body was as high as a dozen stories building. Gu Xianyuan was equivalent to falling from a height of a dozen stories building. What was even worse was that there wasn't anything around Gu Xianyuan that she could borrow strength from. She couldn't use the sword essence in her body either. Gu Xianyuan could only let her body fall from the sky. I hope the Xianyuan sword's words are true. My body has already been strengthened to the level of a flood dragon Yuan Ko. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Gu Xianyuan, who was falling from the sky, helplessly thought to herself. At this moment, she was hoping that her body's strength could withstand this impact. Suck. Suck. At this moment, Kong Na was greedily breathing in the air. When Kong Na's dragon mouth sucked in air, it was equivalent to a level 10 storm. As a result, Gu Xianyuan's body was naturally wrapped up by this suction force. She flew directly into Kong Na's mouth. If it wasn't for Gu Xianyuan's quick eyes and hands, she might have already been eaten into Kong Na's stomach. Chapter 1135. Oh no! Mouth ulcers. Feeling the stinging pain in her mouth, Kong Na said sadly. Sorry. Gu Xianyuan, who had escaped from death, quickly pulled the Juzi sword back from Kong Na's mouth and put it back into the scabbard. But at the same time, a trace of doubt emerged in Gu Xianyuan's heart. This Juzi sword was effortless when it was inserted into Kong Na's mouth. This was not in line with the common sense of a wooden sword. When using the Juzi sword in other times, Gu Xianyuan never felt that the Juzi sword was so sharp. Could it be that the Juzi sword has a special damage effect on Kong Na? Gu Xianyuan could only guess like this. On the other side, after Adam discovered that his prey had escaped from death, his expressionless face revealed a rare change that looked like anger. Then, Adam charged towards Kong Na once again, determined to kill this pitiful little female dragon once and for all. Oh no! The painful experience just now had left a deep shadow in the heart of this pitiful little female dragon. How would she dare to fight Adam again? She flapped her wings once more and flew a few hundred meters into the air, putting some distance between her and Adam and hiding far away from this terrifying fellow. Oh! Oh! Adam couldn't speak and could only make a few whining sounds. Adam grabbed wildly towards the sky, trying to pull Kong Na down. Of course, this was impossible. At this time, Adam was a few hundred meters away from Kong Na, and Adam himself didn't have the ability to fly. It was impossible to catch Kong Na, who was flying in the air. But Adam wasn't just blindly grabbing. After discovering that he couldn't catch Kong Na, Adam suddenly picked up a round iron ball from beside him. This iron ball looked like an iron ball in Adam's hand, but in fact it was a spherical dome decoration of a large shopping mall. An iron ball that could accommodate thousands of people was like an ordinary basketball in Adam's hand. Not good dodge, Gu Xianyuan immediately said to Kong Na, but it was already a little too late. That spherical dome was thrown out by Adam with all his might, directly smashing onto Kong Na's head, causing Kong Na to sway in the air, almost directly falling from the sky. Seeing that Kong Na was hit by his attack, Adam became excited. He picked up some things beside him and threw them at Kong Na. However, Adam could no longer find a dome like before. He could only pick up the ruins of a high-rise building and throw them at Kong Na like rocks. Perhaps it was Adam's accuracy or Kong Na's stupidity in dodging, but out of the 10 pieces Adam threw, 7 or 8 of them hit the unlucky Kong Na. Although Kong Na didn't receive any serious injuries, they still left quite a few bloody marks on her body. Oh no! Kong Na flapped her wings forcefully to express the anger in her heart. It was fine that her strength was inferior to this ugly fellow, but she didn't expect that she would become a live target in the air. This was a huge blow to Kong Na's little self-esteem. Fly left. At this moment, Kong Na suddenly heard this command from the human in her mouth. Kong Na, who was dizzy from being smashed by Adam, flew towards her left. As expected, she narrowly dodged a piece of rubble that was smashing towards her. Fly right, fly down, fly up. Gu Xianyuan acted like she was playing a game of dodgeball, constantly ordering Kong Na to fly in different directions. With Gu Xuanyuan's command, the rocks that Adam threw could no longer find Kong Na. Kong Na also seemed to have discovered a very fun game, becoming more and more cheerful, quickly forgetting the pain she had just received. Ignore her, directly destroy the core. Ling Boli, who was controlling Adam from afar, had already issued this command for the 36th time. Ling Boli's intelligence wasn't bad. She obviously knew that Adam's entanglement with Kong Na wouldn't have any results, and would instead delay the little time she had left. However, Ling Boli's control over Adam wasn't as strong as she had imagined. Adam still seemed to retain a certain level of self-awareness. When Adam was in a slightly agitated state of mind, he would habitually ignore Ling Boli's commands, and all Ling Boli could do was to constantly repeat and strengthen her commands. Fortunately, under Ling Boli's persistent efforts, Adam finally regained his reaction to Ling Boli's commands. He gave up on this game of fighting little female dragons, and once again advanced towards the nearby core. Gu Xianyuan could see very clearly from Kong Na's dragon mouth. The humans in the core were currently engaged in a life-and-death struggle with the Yuan Ko, who had attacked the city walls. The battle was extremely stalemated. Any change in the strength of one side could possibly cause the entire battle to collapse. Once Adam entered the battle, then the collapse of the humans would probably happen in an instant. Kong Na, hurry down and stop that fellow. Gu Xianyuan ordered Kong Na with some urgency. No. Kong Na shook her head forcefully, shaking Gu Xianyuan in her mouth until she felt dizzy. This fellow's strength is too great. His strength is too great. Kong Na can't beat him. Kong Na can't even breathe. It seemed that Kong Na was still immersed in the fear of being strangled by Adam, and no longer had the courage to fight Adam in close combat. It's all right, I guarantee that this time only you bully him, he won't bully you. Gu Xianyuan said to Kong Na with certainty. Oh no, oh no. Kong Na decisively pretended to be ignorant, her mouth constantly repeating the words, oh no. Kong Na, have you forgotten that you were dodging the attacks under my command? Ever since you listened to my command, have you been hit by a rock again? Gu Xianyuan stroked her hill-sized teeth, and said with an incomparably gentle and firm tone, Kong Na, believe me, I can help you take revenge. Just now when he was strangling your neck, I was the one who told you to strangle his neck. Really? Kong Na's words were still somewhat hesitant, but she was obviously moved by Gu Xuanyuan's words. Of course it's true. Gu Xianyuan struck while the iron was hot. How about this? I'll give you another month's worth of high-purity nuclear fuel rods. 5 months, 4 months. Kong Na originally wanted to raise 5 fingers to express the weight of 5 months, but Kong Na somewhat sadly discovered that she only had 4 fingers on her dragon claw, so she could only helplessly take the initiative to reduce the number by 1 month. At this moment, Kong Na deeply experienced the sorrow of having too few fingers. She so desperately wished that she had as many fingers as possible. What? You said the number of fingers has nothing to do with the number of months of food. What a joke! Our Kong Na is a well-behaved child. The number she said must correspond to the number of fingers she stretched out, otherwise it would be too discordant. Deal. If time allowed, Gu Xianyuan would definitely bargain with Kong Na for a while. But the problem now was that Gu Xianyuan simply didn't allow any more time to be wasted. After obtaining Gu Xuanyuan's promise, Kong Na instantly became full of vigor. After letting out a few dragon roars, she once again flew towards Adam. Don't head towards the core area. Gu Xianyuan shouted loudly in Kong Na's mouth, but Kong Na didn't seem to hear clearly, still flying towards the core area. In the end, the moment Kong Na's body pounced on Adam's body, the two huge beasts' bodies leaned against each other, and finally crashed into the wall of the core area at the same time. Rumble, a large part of the wall of the core area collapsed in an instant. Whether it was normal humans or Yuan Ko, all of them were instantly smashed into meat paste by these two huge beasts. The entire section of the wall was completely wiped out. You stupid female dragon! Seeing this scene, Gu Xianyuan simply wanted to cry but had no tears. At least 3,000 to 4,000 people had died from the collision just now. Oh no! How did you know that Kong Na was raised by pure breast milk? This Kong Na really had a hearing problem. In Kong Na's ears, it sounded like pure breast milk. Kong Na, listen up. From now on, you must listen to my orders completely. If you disobey even one of them, I will reduce your food supply for a month. Gu Xianyuan had no choice but to use food to threaten this silly little female dragon. Oh! Kong Na gave a weak "oh" sound. At this moment, Adam also crawled up from the ground. Seeing Kong Na knocking him down once again, he was instantly enraged. Ignoring Ling Boli's orders behind him, he directly attacked Kong Na. Then take 3 steps back, punch to the left, and then use your head. Gu Xianyuan quickly issued a series of orders to Kong Na. Kong Na's execution of orders was still a little stiff. A lot of the connections were a beat slower. But even so, the results were still better than expected. Kong Na directly avoided Adam's attack by taking 3 steps back. Punching to the left forced Adam to dodge to the right, thus revealing an opening. Finally, Kong Na used her head to block, the sharp dragon horn directly piercing into Adam's body. A stream of dark red blood directly flowed out from Adam's wound. Oh no! He's bleeding! Seeing Adam bleeding, Kong Na actually went into a daze for a while. This was the first time she made Adam bleed since the start of the battle. Don't stare blankly, run 5 steps to the left, then 3 steps back, quick! Gu Xuanyuan's command was quickly transmitted over. Under Gu Xuanyuan's command, Kong Na, this silly little female dragon, whose close combat abilities were terrible to the extreme, actually transformed into a dragon combat expert in an instant. Adam's consecutive attacks were all nullified by Kong Na. Instead, Kong Na took advantage of the time when her body was exposed, and used her dragon horn to ferociously bash him a few times. The blood-dripping wounds on her body gradually increased. Oh no! Kong Na is so amazing! Seeing that she had the advantage in all aspects, Kong Na happily and foolishly laughed, as expected of a stupid little female dragon. Chapter 1136. Roar! Adam let out a painful howl as he was hit by Kungana. Then, he started to attack Kungana crazily again. Back, left, bend over, punch. Under Gu Xuanyuan's command, Kungana turned into a nimble female dragon. Not only did Adam's attacks not hit Kungana, but he also got hit by Kungana's dragon horns a few more times. This made Adam even crazier. Don't fight with this female dragon. Attack the core area directly. On a tall building in the distance, the expressionless Ling Boli finally changed her expression. She looked anxious. There were only 30 minutes left before the super-dimensional protection wall reactivated. If they couldn't attack the core area and destroy the super-dimensional protection wall system's core controller, then this attack would definitely end in failure. This was something that the Fuso Celestial System, which had invested a lot of effort and resources, couldn't accept. Kungana's attacks couldn't cause any fatal damage to Adam. Right now, Adam only needed to ignore Kungana's attacks and attack the core area to achieve his goal. But Kong Na's attacks had already caused Adam to completely enter a berserk state. Ling Boli's orders were already very weak to Adam, and after Adam's mental state had gone berserk, such orders were directly thrown to the back of his mind. No matter how Ling Boli repeated her orders, Adam would always be entangled with Kong Na. Damn it! Ling Boli gritted her teeth. Then, she stood on the side of the tall building. She leaped forward with her long legs and jumped down from the tall building. Even without the ring of perfection, Ling Boli was just an ordinary person. Not to mention, she was currently in a building that was 600 to 700 meters tall. Jumping down from such a height was undoubtedly suicidal for Ling Boli. However, when Ling Boli jumped off, her battlesuit suddenly shot out 2 streams of gas. It seemed like Ling Boli's battlesuit had the function of flying rocket. Ling Boli quickly glided in the air and landed beside the Shan Wu Emperor and Quetzalcoatl god. You scared me to death. Alexander the Great saw Ling Boli descending from the sky beside him, and he was instantly shocked. There's no time. Ling Boli's words were short and concise. Your troops must immediately rush into the core area and destroy the super-dimensional protection wall. What about that, Adam? Alexander the Great glanced at Adam, who was fighting fiercely with Kungana. Just let Adam do it. This shouldn't be a difficult task for him. Adam can't control it anymore. Ling Boli shook her head and said decisively, either you destroy the super-dimensional barrier, or I'll leave immediately. Are you kidding me? You can't control what you brought. Alexander thought Lena was joking at first, but when he saw Lena's pale face, he knew that Lena wasn't joking. She really couldn't control Adam anymore. If Adam and Connor continued to be entangled, then after 30 minutes, wouldn't everything be brave soldiers? Follow me. Thinking of this, Alexander the Great could no longer remain calm. He already knew that this was the most critical moment. If they could not break through the defense of the human core area, then all of them would be trapped in Yuzhong City like turtles in a jar. Left with no choice, Alexander could only lead his elite guards into battle. Brave soldiers, I promise you right here, as long as you can charge into that gap, the entire city will be your toy as long as the legions don't hold their weapons for 3 days. Alexander the Great mobilized his soldiers. The so-called 3 days of no military lockdown meant that they would slaughter the entire city for 3 days. Within these 3 days, the military law would no longer restrict the soldiers of the Great Shan Empire. All the humans and belongings in the city would be looted by these soldiers. Hooray! Hooray! All of Alexander the Great's soldiers instantly burst into thunderous cheers, and the morale of the entire army rose at a visible rate. All of the soldiers' eyes turned blood red, and their muscles bulged as if they were berserk warriors. In ancient times, this was undoubtedly the biggest disaster for a city. All of the city's residents would be wiped out, their belongings would be robbed, their houses would be destroyed, their men would be hacked to death, their women would be endlessly raped, their children would be enslaved, and the entire city would be destroyed within 3 days. This was the most effective way to motivate soldiers in ancient times. All of the soldiers would explode into a frenzy after hearing such an order from their superiors. No one could resist the temptation of not having their weapons locked up for 3 days. However, the situation now was different. Most of the soldiers under Alexander the Great's control were below the Flood Dragon level. Due to their low levels, they lost their basic intelligence after coming to this world through the dimensional gate. They became puppets that only knew how to live and fight according to their instincts from their previous lives. They became crazy about Alexander the Great's promise not to have their weapons locked up for 3 days, not because they were really excited about the possibility of looting. Instead, it was because this promise activated the instincts of these puppets. They were excited because of their instincts from their previous lives, and there was no rational component to this. However, this was actually no different. Once these soldiers broke into the core area, they would still act according to their instincts from their previous lives and carry out a merciless looting of Yuzhong City. The result would be the same. Yuzhong City would suffer a huge catastrophe. Sword Immortal Ling Su, look. What's that? A reporter behind Sword Immortal Ling Su pointed at a cloud of dust in the distance and screamed in shock. Sword Immortal Ling Su focused his gaze to discover that it was a vast horde of silver-armored cavalry that stretched as far as the eye could see, charging toward the city walls of the core region. It's Alexander the Great's most elite Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion. The expression on Sword Immortal Ling Su's face changed more than 10 times in an instant. Sword Immortal Ling Su knew about this Imperial Guard Legion. As Alexander the Great's most powerful weapon, the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion had extremely terrifying combat abilities. Every soldier was a sole rank Yuan Ko, which was equivalent to the top sword-bearers. And when these sword-bearers were organized into a legion that obeyed orders and formed a huge whole, this kind of power became even more terrifying. Most importantly, the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion was composed of Yuan Ko with powerful physical strength. Even with the halo of law above their heads, the actual combat strength of these Imperial Guards did not decrease much. At most, they dropped from Soul rank Yuan Ko to Ghost rank Yuan Ko. Previously, because Alexander the Great wanted to preserve his strength and because cavalry was not good at attacking cities, Alexander the Great kept this legion by his side and did not send out any humans to attack. But why now? Why did he send out this legion now? Thinking of this, Sword Immortal Ling Su hurriedly ran to the top of the city wall. At a glance, he saw a section of the city wall that had been destroyed by the battle between Adam and Kong Na. His heart was filled with shock, and he shouted, "The target of this Imperial Guard Legion is that section of the city wall. They want to break into the core area through the city wall." Sword Immortal Ling Su was extremely flustered. That gap in the city wall was no different from flat ground to the horde of cavalrymen. These cavalrymen could easily charge into the core region. Once the personal guard army entered the core region, the core control equipment of the super-dimensional wall system would lose all of its barriers. Not taking into account anything else, they just had to kill all of the technicians who were repairing the core control equipment, and the super-dimensional wall system would no longer be able to be repaired. What should I do? What should I do? Sword Immortal Ling Su was so flustered that he didn't even have the ability to think. He didn't know how to deal with the situation at hand. The bubble of the entire Yuzhong City would burst under the iron hooves of the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion. "Brothers, follow me. We must block this opening even if we die." At this critical juncture, a person's shout suddenly sounded from Sword Immortal Ling Su's personal terminal. Sword Immortal Ling Su remembered this voice. This was the voice of Zhao Qinfeng, the commander-in-chief of all the ordinary human soldiers. Because Zhao Qinfeng was the commander-in-chief of all the ordinary humans, Sword Immortal Ling Su temporarily granted Zhao Qinfeng the right to use the public channel to give orders to everyone at the request of Gu Xianyuan. Thus, this voice could also automatically reach Sword Immortal Ling Su's ears. What is this guy trying to do? Sword Immortal Ling Su hurriedly looked in Zhao Qinfeng's direction, and then he was completely stunned. Sword Immortal Ling Su saw countless soldiers armed with guns jump down from the surrounding city walls under Zhao Qinfeng's lead. They surged over from both sides of the city wall, and the surging crowd quickly filled the entire opening. These ordinary humans were actually using their own flesh and blood to temporarily block the opening in the city wall. Brothers! Zhao Qinfeng continued to mobilize everyone through the public channel on his personal terminal. Behind us is our final line of defense. Once the super-dimensional wall protection system is destroyed, our Yuzhong city will be finished. Our family, friends, lovers, and children in Yuzhong City will all be finished as well. In the end, they will all become Yuan Ko's food, or rather, become Yuan Ko's tools to vent his bestial desires. Is this the ending that we wish to see? Now that the battle has reached its final juncture, I hope that everyone who still has the guts to join me and use their own flesh and blood to block this opening, and fight to the death against these Yuan Kos. I can tell everyone very clearly that as long as you come here, you will die without a doubt. You are fated to die here, and use your own blood to spill over the entire battlefield. But, Zhao Qinfeng's voice suddenly rose by a few hundred decibels, as if he was shouting from the depths of his soul. Behind us is our most precious treasure. Comrades, today is the day to die a heroic death. Chapter 1137. This was the most shocking day in Sword Immortal Ling Su's life, and it was also the most tragic battle he had ever seen. Under Zhao Qinfeng's encouragement, hundreds of thousands of ordinary humans jumped into this gap with the conviction that they would die, and they used their bodies to form a city wall. Everyone, hold on! When this human wall was just formed, the war horses of the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion had already galloped to the front of the city wall. The humans didn't even have time to open fire before they collided with these cavalrymen. Alexander the Great, who was charging at the front, looked at this human wall with a disdainful expression. This human wall wasn't very tall. It was only about 3 to 4 meters tall, and it was formed by 2 to 3 people stacked on top of each other. If this kind of city wall was built with stones, then Alexander the Great might find it very troublesome, and he would have to dismount to think of a way to get over it. However, this city wall was indeed built with human flesh, and this made Alexander the Great feel extremely disdainful. In Alexander the Great's eyes, as long as his war horses charged forward with great inertia, this human wall would be crushed into a pile of minced meat in an instant. Charge! Charge! Alexander the Great shouted loudly, and he was the first to charge at the human wall. Alexander the Great could clearly see that the person in front of him was a young man in his 20s or 30s. This young man looked at Alexander the Great with great fear in his eyes, and his body kept trembling as if he was going to turn around and run in the next second. Poor little guy! Although Alexander the Great said that, he actually didn't feel any pity. What he loved the most was the thrill of trampling on the corpses of his enemies with his horse's hooves. At first, it was just as Alexander the Great expected. Under the impact of his horse's hooves, this young man in his 20s or 30s was immediately kicked in the head. His entire face was caved in by the horse's hooves, and all sorts of red and white things that looked like tofu gushed out of his broken head. This pitiful but heroic warrior died under the hooves of Alexander the Great. The death of this soldier was a signal, and the cavalrymen who were following behind King Alexander did the same thing. They rammed into the wall of human flesh, trying to crush this overconfident wall of human flesh into meat paste. There were also many people who sacrificed their precious lives like this warrior who had his head crushed by Alexander's warhorse. In fact, those who died first were considered lucky. Those who didn't die first could only watch as their intestines, hearts, and other internal organs flowed out of their stomach. They suffered the most painful torture in their lives before dying on the battlefield. However, that was the end of Alexander the Great's plan. The wall of human flesh didn't instantly collapse under the impact of the horse hoof. Although the wall of human flesh shook and fell, it withstood the most powerful impact as Alexander the Great expected. The wall of human flesh didn't show any signs of collapsing. Once the wall of human flesh stopped the first wave of impact, the situation instantly turned around and became extremely disadvantageous for Alexander the Great's elite legion. The cavalrymen in the front were stopped, but the second and third waves of cavalrymen couldn't stop immediately. The inertia of the war horses forced them to continue charging forward. Therefore, the second and third waves of cavalrymen often rammed into the first wave of cavalrymen. The first wave of cavalrymen and war horses tragically followed in the footsteps of the humans who died before them. They were trampled into meat paste by the second and third waves of cavalrymen. If Alexander the Great didn't order the fourth and fifth waves of cavalrymen to turn around and go around a big bend, the second and third waves of cavalrymen would also be trampled to death by the fourth and fifth waves of cavalrymen. What is going on? Even though Alexander the Great was under great pressure, his head was stomped on by a cavalryman behind him, and he almost fainted from the pain. If Alexander the Great's body wasn't tough enough, he would have died just like that soldier who was stomped to death by him. Alexander the Great leaped up from his mount that had its legs broken on the human flesh wall. Then, he swung his sword and killed the humans beside him. Now, he was at the top of the human flesh wall. From this position, Alexander the Great could finally see the entire wall of human flesh. It turned out that this human flesh wall was different from what Alexander the Great had imagined. In Alexander's imagination, this human flesh wall was only made up of 2 to 3 rows of humans stacked on top of each other, and his war horses could easily break it. However, the reality was that this human flesh wall was made up of 20 to 30 rows of humans stacked on top of each other, and the thickness of the human flesh wall was about 7 to 8 meters. This thickness was no different from ordinary stone walls. No wonder the human flesh wall could break the hooves of his elite legion. Open fire! Alexander the Great seemed to have heard someone giving the order, and the human flesh wall instantly scattered. The surviving humans picked up the guns in their hands with fear and anger, and they started to shoot at the cavalrymen who were lucky enough to survive the charge. Facing dozens of guns at the same time, even the most elite of the guards would not be able to withstand it. These soldiers were almost instantly turned into sieves by the humans. Alexander the Great's armor was very fancy, and it was obvious that he was a general of the Imperial Guard Legion. Therefore, he was naturally targeted by the humans. Dozens of guns aimed at Alexander the Great at the same time, and the bullets hit Alexander the Great's armor like raindrops. Fortunately, Alexander the Great's armor was made from extremely tough materials, and it had unparalleled defensive abilities. Therefore, these bullets couldn't penetrate Alexander the Great's armor. Instead, the bullets bounced off Alexander the Great's armor and hit the humans themselves, causing a lot of casualties. Stop shooting! Don't attack that general! The human commander seemed to have realized that using guns to attack Alexander the Great would only hurt his own people, so he decisively ordered them to stop shooting. At the same time, Alexander the Great let out a furious roar after seeing the heavy casualties of his elite guards due to such a stupid reason. Then, he swung his huge sword and killed the humans around him crazily. These humans couldn't resist Alexander the Great at all, and in the blink of an eye, tens of them died under his sword. Infantry, charge at my position and tear an opening for me. After killing so many humans, Alexander the Great regained some of his calmness and rationality. He knew that if he tried to charge at the human flesh wall, the result would be the same. Therefore, he could only use the infantry to forcefully tear an opening for the cavalrymen to pass through. Otherwise, the cavalrymen wouldn't be able to charge into the core area. Alexander the Great's plan was good. He knew that he was almost invincible among these human soldiers. These humans were physically weak, and the bullets in their hands couldn't penetrate Alexander the Great's armor. As long as Alexander the Great's infantry cooperated with him, they would be able to tear an opening for the cavalrymen to pass through. Although Alexander the Great's plan was good, something unexpected happened. A general who was as strong as him and was wearing the same sturdy armor stood in front of Alexander the Great. Yang Jian, have you defected to the enemy? Alexander the Great roared angrily at Yang Jian. Yang Jian could only shrug his shoulders and say, I can't help it. I'm just willing to admit defeat. Die. Alexander the Great swung his sword angrily and clashed with Yang Jian. To be honest, Alexander the Great's swordsmanship couldn't be compared to Erlang immortal Yang Jian's three-pointed, double-edged sword. However, Yang Jian didn't really want to kill Alexander the Great. After all, he still had to return to the heavenly court, and there was no need to become enemies with a powerful force like the Martyr's Palace. However, Yang Jian still perfectly completed the task of restraining Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great couldn't continue to attack the ordinary soldiers around him. These ordinary soldiers could also wholeheartedly stop the Macedonian army's attack. The Macedonian infantry fought very bravely. They weren't afraid of the bullets that filled the sky, and they used their bodies to face them head-on. However, history and facts had proven that cold weapons would only end in failure in the face of firearms. Although many brave Macedonian infantrymen broke into the humans' position, they were quickly focused on by the bullet. In less than a second, they were riddled with holes. At this moment, the humans were in a frenzy. They didn't even care that their bullets might accidentally kill their comrades. They fired wildly at the infantries that rushed in. Under such a terrifying momentum, the Macedonian infantries had difficulty advancing. They couldn't cooperate with Alexander the Great to tear a hole in the humans' line of defense, as Alexander the Great had hoped. 20 minutes left. Yang Jian blocked Alexander the Great's sword with his sword. 19 minutes left. Alexander the Great was anxious. He knew very well what Yang Jian meant. It meant that in 19 minutes, the human's super-dimensional defense system would be reactivated, and in 19 minutes, his Macedonian army would be trapped by the sword-bearers who had recovered all their sword essences. Now, Alexander the Great had to make a decision. Should he use these last 19 minutes to rush into the core area and destroy the core controller of the super-dimensional defense system, or should he use these last 19 minutes to retreat frantically and escape the coverage of the super-dimensional defense system so that his army wouldn't die in Yuzhong City? You win. I'll retreat, Alexander the Great said to Yang Jian reluctantly. You didn't lose to me. You lost to the humans. Yang Jian smiled bitterly. I used to be a human too. Alexander the Great nodded with a smile. Then, he turned around and killed a few humans around him, then fled toward the outside of the core area. Don't stop him. Let him go. The human commander also gave a timely order. The humans around Alexander the Great quickly dodged this killer, and the Great Shan the Great easily retreated to his troops. What? The feathered serpent god and her troops retreated 10 minutes ago? After returning to his troops, Alexander the Great was furious when he learned that the feathered serpent god's troops had retreated 10 minutes ago, but the Yuan Ko of the Fusang celestial system was still fighting. Forget it. If we retreat, the Fusang celestial system will retreat as well. Alexander the Great finally gave the order to retreat. Then, a sad horn sound came from the Macedonian army. Then, the soldiers who were fighting with no regard for their own lives instantly changed into a retreat formation and retreated to the outer city wall in an orderly manner. Chapter 1138. Seeing that the Martyr's Palace had retreated, even though Ling Boli was unwilling, she knew that it was impossible to break through Yuzhong City's final defense system with just the power of the Fusang Celestial Branch. The massive attack on Yuzhong City had finally come to an end. Left with no choice, Ling Boli could only order her Yuan Ko subordinates to retreat from Yuzhong City before the super-dimensional wall protection system reactivated. These ordinary Yuan Ko that obeyed her orders were easy to deal with, but Adam, who was still fighting Kong Na, was a different story. Ling Boli couldn't order Adam to attack the core area before, so she couldn't order Adam to retreat from Yuzhong City now either. Once the Yuzhong people's super-dimensional wall protection system reactivated, Adam would be completely lost in Yuzhong City. Ling Boli definitely couldn't bear the loss of Adam's death. All of Ling Boli's combat power was on Adam. Losing Adam meant losing the new era Evangelion Machine Zero. Then she, Ling Boli, would fall from a U-level Yuan Ko to a Tiger-level Yuan Ko. Her position in the Fusang Celestial Branch would become extremely awkward. This was a situation that Ling Boli absolutely couldn't accept. Thus, she had to do everything she could to pull Adam out of Yuzhong City. Adam! Retreat immediately! Retreat immediately! Ling Boli once again repeated her orders over 10 times, but Adam, who was already tangling with Kong Na, completely ignored her orders. Ling Boli's final experiment had also been declared a failure, so the only thing she could do now was to take a risk. Thinking of this, Ling Boli sighed slightly. She looked around and found a pure white underwear in the ruins of a building. Then, she waved the underwear high in her hand and walked toward the core area. Finally won. Sword Immortal Ling Su couldn't help but shed tears of excitement at the sight of all of the Yuan bandits retreating. This was really too difficult. Yuzhong City had paid a bloody price to finally obtain this victory. My lord, a Yuan Ko is approaching us. Sword Immortal Ling Su's tears had barely fallen when he heard his subordinates report. Why are you asking me? Can't we just kill him? Sword Immortal Ling Su said without hesitation. But my lord, that Yuan Ko seems to be waving a white cloth in his hand. Does that mean he's surrendering? The subordinate said again. White cloth. Surrender? Sword Immortal Ling Su's interest was piqued. He walked over to the edge of the city wall and looked down. Sure enough, there was a young woman in a strange white dress waving the white cloth in her hand. At the same time, she raised her hands high into the air as she approached the core region. It's Ling Boli. Sword Immortal Ling Su was astonished. He recognized Yuan Ko as the pilot of the Zero Gospel machine, Ling Boli. Let her come here. I want to see what she wants to do. Sword Immortal Ling Su's curiosity was piqued. Of course, he knew that Ling Boli's true combat prowess was only at the level of a Tiger rank Yuan Ko. The soldiers on the city wall would be able to kill this Yuan Ko in a single volley. He didn't suspect that Ling Boli had any ulterior motive. Under Sword Immortal Ling Su's command, Ling Boli's journey was unimpeded, and she soon appeared before Sword Immortal Ling Su. I want you to release Asuka. Also, get that giant dragon to stop attacking and let Adam leave Yuzhong City. Ling Boli went straight to the point. As soon as she saw Sword Immortal Ling Su, she immediately stated her objective. Miss Ling Boli is quite straightforward. Sword Immortal Ling Su nodded. In reality, Adam had already broken free from control. Anyone with a discerning eye could see this. Now that Ling Boli had taken the initiative to find him, it further proved this point. It proved that she had already lost control of Adam. Then, to Ling Boli at this time, the only way to take Adam away was to get the humans to voluntarily retreat. Only by getting Kong Na to voluntarily withdraw from her battle with Adam would Adam gradually regain his rationality and be under Ling Boli's control again. Only then would she be able to successfully bring Adam out. Of course, there was also the captive Asuka. Although Ling Boli didn't have a good relationship with her, she still had to exchange Asuka. What trump card do you have? Sword Immortal Ling Su clearly knew that if Ling Boli didn't have something to rely on, she definitely wouldn't dare to come to him and ask him to release Adam. Otherwise, Sword Immortal Ling Su would kill Ling Boli right away. Since Ling Boli was straightforward, Sword Immortal Ling Su couldn't be bothered to converse with Ling Boli. He directly asked about Ling Boli's trump card. Can any of you withstand the self-destruction of a flood-level Yuan Ko? Ling Boli coldly swept her gaze across everyone's eyes. With a single thought from me, Adam will immediately self-destruct. Once a flood-level Yuan Ko self-destructs, the entire Yuzhong city will be razed to the ground in an instant. None of you will survive. What? How could this be? Hearing you say that, all the people around you showed a horrified expression. In the more than 1,000 years of battle between humans and Yuan Ko, whether it was for humans or Yuan Ko, self-destruction was the best way to perish together. Humans had experienced at least a dozen flood-level Yuan Ko and even desolate-level Yuan Ko's self-destruction. As for the result of the self-destruction, everything within a radius of about 100 kilometers would be destroyed, and a deep pit with a radius of about 100 meters would be blasted out. Unless the sword-bearers present could have a personal shield with an energy level of more than 1 million, they would only be dead in the face of a flood-level Yuan Ko's self-destruction. A personal shield with an energy intensity of more than 1 million was roughly equivalent to the personal shield energy intensity of a top spirit sword-level sword-bearer. In other words, any sword-bearer below the top spirit sword level would directly die under the self-detonation of a flood-level Yuan bandit. There was absolutely no possibility of survival. Thinking of the scene of Adam self-destructing in Yuzhong City, all the humans present suddenly shuddered. They wanted nothing more than to immediately drive this god of plague out of Yuzhong City. Why should I believe that giant has the ability to self-destruct? There has never been such a record in our information. Although Sword Immortal Ling Su was also shocked, this was a matter of great importance. If Adam could listen to Ling Boli's order and instantly self-destruct, then it was naturally necessary to agree to Ling Boli's request. But if Ling Boli's self-destruction was fake, then he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, would become a complete joke. This kind of example was not unheard of. The most recent one was 95 years ago, when the fledgling Yan Jin Jiendi. Oh, at that time, it was still Yan Jin Sword Spirit. Yan Jin Sword Spirit and Qing Yaojin of the Martyr's Palace fought in the Mei Ling mountain range. In the end, Yan Jin Sword Spirit expended a tremendous amount of effort and finally defeated Qing Yaojin. Just as Yan Jin Sword Spirit was about to kill Qing Yaojin, Qing Yaojin suddenly rushed into a building full of people and threatened Yan Jin Sword Spirit, saying that if Yan Jin Sword Spirit dared to kill him, he would immediately self-destruct and take everyone in the building down with him. At that time, Yan Jin Sword Spirit was threatened and indeed didn't dare to kill him further. In the end, while he was hesitating, one of the final bosses of the Martyr's Palace, flood-level Yuan Ko Emperor Li Shimin, reached out a giant hand from the void and saved Qing Yaojin. In the end, just a few days later, this face-slapping happened. This Qing Yaojin drank a few bottles of erguotu from who knew where, and then just happened to encounter a small team of sword-bearers. Qing Yaojin, who had already drunk so much during the fight that he couldn't control his mouth, sarcastically recounted what had happened. It turned out that Qing Yaojin didn't have the ability to self-destruct at all. He was only deceiving Yan Jin Sword Spirit, but he didn't expect that fool to actually believe him. In the end, half of the sword-bearers died under Qing Yaojin's 3 axes, while the other half barely managed to escape. The surviving sword-bearers immediately blamed their hatred on the sword spirit of Jiejin. Based on their logic, if it wasn't for the fact that Sword Emperor Jijin was too stupid and was deceived by Qing Yaojin, resulting in him not killing Qing Yaojin, their comrade wouldn't have died in Qing Yaojin's hands today. As a result, these sword-bearers spread the news, and in the end, everyone knew about it, causing the young Yan Jin Sword Spirit to lose a lot of face. It was said that he couldn't raise his head for a year or two. But this wasn't entirely a bad thing. After this incident, Yan Jin Sword Spirit's personality became very calm, which laid the foundation for him to ascend to the throne in the future. After Sword Emperor Jijin ascended to the throne, it was reasonable to say that everyone should avoid this matter. However, Gu Jinjiendi took the initiative to tell others about this, hoping that they would take this as a warning and not be fooled by a few words from Yuan Ko. Otherwise, it would leave behind a scourge that would cause future sword-bearers to suffer. It was precisely because of Gu Jinjiandi's attitude that this matter was widely spread, and in the end, everyone knew about it. It became a fable called Qing Yaojin Self-Destruct, and all humans took this as a warning. Now, Sword Immortal Ling Su had to confirm that Ling Boli was telling the truth, that this atom really could self-destruct under her control. Otherwise, he would become the next Gu Jinjiandi. All your information was recorded later on. Atom has never self-destructed, so of course you don't know that Atom has the ability to self-destruct, Ling Boli said coldly. Although what she said was a little annoying, it was the truth. Apart from the huge number of Yuan Ko, the abilities of the unique Yuan Ko had never been fully recorded. Moreover, most of the abilities of the Yuan Ko who had the ability to self-destruct were only recorded after they self-destructed. Before that, it was indeed very rare for humans to know that they had the ability to self-destruct in advance. Who can prove that Atom can self-destruct? Sword Immortal Ling Su asked after a moment of hesitation. He knew that his question was very stupid. He had all the recorded information of the human race in his hand. There might be someone who could prove Atom's ability to self-destruct, but it could only be those Yuan Ko who were very familiar with Atom. But asking a human to ask Yuan Ko for proof, not to mention the fact that the probability of these Yuan Ko lying was as high as 99%, where would he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, find those Yuan Ko who could prove Atom's ability? Could he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, give these Yuan Ko a call, send them a message, or personally go to their homes to prove it? Yes. What Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't expect was that Ling Boli would answer this question with such certainty and calmness. Then, she told Sword Immortal Ling Su that Guqing, Meili of the Free City, and the mayor of the Free City could prove it. Chapter 1139. The Mayor of the Freedom City and Guqing Meili? Sword Immortal Ling Su did not expect Ling Boli to be looking for someone from the Freedom City. At this time, the Freedom City maintained an absolutely neutral stance. In order to maintain their neutrality, the Freedom City would definitely tell the truth and not lie. Otherwise, they would be suspected of siding with one side. However, in order to maintain an absolutely neutral stance, the Freedom City had very few channels of communication with humans. The only way to communicate with humans was through the Sword Committee headquarters. However, if they really waited for the Sword Committee headquarters to contact the Freedom City, it would probably take a lot of time. Oh right, I happen to have someone from the Freedom City here. Sword Immortal Ling Su suddenly remembered that the Freedom City's Misaka Mikoto was in Yuzhang City. There was no more suitable candidate than her, so Sword Immortal Ling Su quickly invited Misaka Mikoto over. Miss Ling Boli, long time no see. Unexpectedly, Misaka Mikoto seemed to be very familiar with Ling Boli. She greeted her the moment they met. However, the tone of her voice was a little strange, as if there was something very interesting hidden in it. Miss Misaka, hello? Ling Boli nodded cautiously. After that, Misaka Mikoto and Ling Boli did not interact much. Sword Immortal Ling Su told Misaka Mikoto everything about Ling Boli. After listening to Sword Immortal Ling Su's account, Misaka Mikoto said with certainty, "There's no need to ask the mayor or Miss Mikoto. I know about this. Atom does have the ability to self-destruct." Miss Mikoto, are you sure about this? Sword Immortal Ling Su confirmed again with a serious expression. I'm sure. Misaka Mikoto nodded again, a reminiscing expression on her face. If it wasn't for Jojo Doma's quick reflexes and covering Atom's body with his right hand, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to see me today, Sword Immortal Ling Su. Jojo Doma? You mean the freelancer known as the Fantasy Killer? Sword Immortal Ling Su recalled Jojo Doma's information. He was a universe rank Yuan Ko from the Freedom City. However, his ability was very special. His right hand could erase all supernatural abilities, just like the ring of reason in the sky. However, it was different from the ring of reason. The ring of reason covered an area. As long as it covered an area, all supernatural abilities would disappear. However, he could only do this if he used his right hand to touch the target. From the looks of it, Jojo Doma wasn't qualified to be a universe-level Yuan Ko. However, since he was judged to be a universe-level Yuan Ko by humans, his ability had to be special. Jojo Doma's ability ignored his opponent's level. The Ring of Reason's ability would be greatly weakened against a Hundam level or Emperor Sword level sword wielder, and it would be useless against a Desolate level or Peak level sword wielder. However, Jojo Doma's ability was different. Even against the most powerful Desolate level Yuan Ko or Emperor Sword wielder, Jojo Doma could erase their opponent's ability. After countless tests, there was no need to doubt it. As for fantasy killer Jojo Doma, super electromagnetic gun Misaka Mikoto, thermostatic death god Hatsuharu, and other people from the same world, they were all extremely good friends. From Misaka Mikoto's words, it could be deduced that Adam had once fought with Jojo Doma and the others. At the last moment, Adam was forced to self-destruct. In the end, it was Jojo Doma who erased Adam's self-destruct ability in time. That was why Misaka Mikoto and the others didn't die from Adam's self-destruction. Then, as long as this woman wills it, Adam will self-destruct? Sword Immortal Ling Su asked unwillingly. Yes. Misaka Mikoto nodded again. The current situation is pretty much what happened then. At that time, Adam also lost control. We also captured Ling Boli, and Ling Boli also ordered Adam to self-destruct while he was out of control. Sword Immortal Ling Su, I'm an outsider, so I shouldn't say too much. However, this is a place where I've fought before, so I hope that Master Sword Immortal Ling Su will believe what I say. I will never lie to you. This Sword Immortal Ling Su was already 80% convinced of Ling Boli's words. However, when he thought about the huge losses Yuzhong City had suffered in the previous battle, and when he thought about Ling Boli's cold and disdainful expression, Sword Immortal Ling Su's anger flared up again. Sword Immortal Ling Su was extremely unwilling to compromise and agree just like that. I must seek Miss Xuanyuan's opinion on this matter. After thinking for a long time, Sword Immortal Ling Su finally decided to throw this difficult problem to Gu Xianyuan. However, Gu Xianyuan did not have her personal gadget with her, and she was currently in Kong Na's mouth, commanding Kong Na to fight. It was impossible for her to send someone to pass the message. Helpless, Sword Immortal Ling Su could only order someone to find a huge high-pitched cannon and aim it at Kong Na's position. Using a volume of over 1,000 decibels, he transmitted the message to Gu Xianyuan in Kong Na's mouth. Is Sword Immortal Ling Su getting more and more muddle-headed as he gets older? He's actually using this kind of method to transmit information. Gu Xianyuan, who was in the dragon's mouth, immediately frowned and complained after hearing the entire message through the high-pitched cannon. That's right, through this method, Gu Xianyuan did indeed find out about this important matter. However, this also meant that this matter was also known by all the other humans. The humans who were still immersed in the joy of victory immediately fell into a state of fear. They looked at the giant in front of them in horror, as if this giant would explode in the next second. No, this old man Ling Su is not stupid. He's trying to completely throw away all responsibility. Gu Xianyuan thought for a moment and realized that this was most likely not a momentary mistake on Sword Immortal Ling Su's part, but a way for Sword Immortal Ling Su to shift the blame. Because this way, all the humans would know that the final decision was made by her, Gu Xianyuan. Then, all the consequences of this decision would be directed at her. Sword Immortal Ling Su was at most a messenger, and he could perfectly shift the blame onto Gu Xianyuan. This guy, he's already starting to scheme against others as soon as the battle has ended. Gu Xianyuan suddenly realized that her friendly relationship with Sword Immortal Ling Su had already gone from its peak to a downhill path. This was also the nature of humans. Once an external crisis had passed, they would start to think of ways to scheme against their own people. Actually, Gu Xuanyuan's way of thinking was still a little extreme. As far as Sword Immortal Ling Su was concerned, although he also wanted to shift the blame, the fundamental reason was that he really didn't know what to do. Moreover, he couldn't think of a better way to inform Gu Xianyuan in such a short time, so he could only resort to this method. Kong Na. Next, you do this, like this, like this. Gu Xianyuan gave Kong Na some instructions on how to involve Adam, and then directly climbed out of Kong Na's mouth. She jumped onto a nearby building, and then hurriedly ran down from the building. What are you guys going to decide? Ling Boli, who was standing on the city wall of the core area, had already become impatient. She kept urging Sword Immortal Ling Su to make a decision, but Sword Immortal Ling Su still refused to give Ling Boli an answer with the reason that Gu Xianyuan, who could make the decision, was still on her way. When there were less than 3 minutes left before the super-dimensional wall protection system, Gu Xianyuan finally arrived on the city wall. She also saw Ling Boli, who was extremely anxious, but still maintained a cold expression. Now give me an answer. Seeing that Gu Xianyuan had finally appeared, Ling Boli immediately asked impatiently. Yes. Actually, I already thought of an answer on the way here. Gu Xianyuan nodded her head, and then walked to Ling Boli's side, and suddenly pressed her face against Ling Boli's face. Using a distance that only lovers could have, she stared into Ling Boli's eyes, and said in a light voice, "Stretch out your hand." What do you want to do? Ling Boli immediately asked. Of course I want to capture you. Gu Xianyuan waved the sealing talisman in her hand. This was a sealing talisman that was specially used to control Yuan Ko. Originally, a universe-level Yuan Ko needed extremely specialized equipment to be able to be sealed. Just like how Gu Xianyuan had previously used a set of equipment left behind from a long time ago to seal Kong Na's power. However, the current Ling Boli was actually only a tiger-level Yuan Ko. In this way, a normal talisman could very easily seal Ling Boli. This is your answer? Ling Boli abruptly took a few steps back. She clenched her fists tightly, and looked at Adam, who was fighting on the other side. If that's the case, I'll have no choice but to die with you. Miss Xianyuan, don't. Be careful. Sword Immortal Ling Su had never thought that Gu Xianyuan would directly want to capture Ling Boli as soon as she arrived. She did not care about the safety of Yuzhang City at all. He was instantly scared out of his wit. He was afraid that Ling Boli would be forced by Gu Xianyuan to the point where she had no choice but to order Adam to self-destruct. Miss Xianyuan, please believe me. Ling Boli is not lying. She's telling the truth. Misaka Mikoto also hurriedly said. Master Ling Su, since you've put in so much effort to give me the right to make the decision, please believe me. Gu Xianyuan did not give Sword Immortal Ling Su and Misaka Mikoto a chance to continue speaking. She took a step forward, and the sealing talisman in her hand grabbed Ling Boli's hands. What kind of person was Gu Xianyuan? Even if she did not have a sword in her hand, Ling Boli, who relied on external objects to fight, would not be able to resist her. Therefore, even though Ling Boli struggled a few times, she was instantly controlled by Gu Xianyuan. As expected, the talisman stuck to Ling Boli's hands. It's over. Will Yuzhang City be destroyed? At this moment, Sword Immortal Ling Su rolled his eyes. He was prepared to welcome the destruction of Yuzhang City. Of course, nothing happened in the end. Yuzhang City was still fine, and Adam was still fine. Everything was fine. Only Ling Boli's expression was ashen. At this moment, she had been successfully controlled by the sealing talisman. She had become a complete captive. Why are you so confident that you can capture me? Ling Boli asked unwillingly. Is there even a need to think about it? Since Dang Ma's fantasy assassin could seal Adam's self-destructibility, then can the ring of perfection in the sky also seal Adam's self-destructibility? As soon as Gu Xianyuan finished speaking, she knocked Ling Boli's head with the hilt of her sword. The unfortunate girl immediately fainted, completely cutting off all possibilities of Ling Boli's escape. Right at this moment, a huge tremor suddenly came from the ground. A faintly discernible membrane began to appear in the sky and shroud Yuzhang City. Yuzhang City's super-dimensional protection system had finally been restored. Chapter 1140. It's over. Sword Immortal Ling Su heaved a long sigh of relief as he looked at the super-dimensional wall that had reappeared in the sky and sensed the abundant sword essence that had reappeared in his body. Don't be too happy, didn't you leave a tail behind? Gu Xianyuan said lightly as she looked at Adam, who was still entangled with Kong Na. My God! How could I forget about this trouble? Sword Immortal Ling Su held his chin weakly. Even though the super-dimensional wall had been restored and the sword essence in their bodies had returned to normal under the protection of the super-dimensional wall system, Adam was still Adam, still a flood-level Yuan Ko. Among the sword-bearers present, the highest rank was only Sword Immortal Ling Su. To destroy a flood-level Yuan Ko like Adam, it was still not enough. Unless Sword Immortal Ling Su was willing to sacrifice a large number of low-rank sword-bearers and sword maidens as cannon fodder, he might have a chance of killing this flood-level Yuan Ko. Miss Xianyuan, do you have any way to deal with this Adam? Sword Immortal Ling Su shamelessly threw the question to Gu Xianyuan. He was already used to this method of solving problems. Of course. Gu Xianyuan nodded her head. We have regained our strength, and Kong Na has actually also regained her strength. As long as Kong Na explodes out with all of her lightning powers, coupled with your cooperation from the side, dealing with this Adam would naturally not be a problem. That's good, I'll. Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately realized that something was wrong. Kong Na was a lightning dragon. If this lightning dragon unleashed her full power, the entire city would probably become a sea of fire. This battlefield was not outside the city, but in the ordinary district of Yuzhang City. If the entire ordinary district was burned to ruins, it would be very difficult to rebuild the entire ordinary district to its original state even after 50 years. No, absolutely not. If the ordinary district is destroyed, then more than half of the 40 million people underground will be homeless. This is too terrifying. Sword Immortal Ling Su shook his head and rejected Gu Xuanyuan's suggestion. In fact, Gu Xuanyuan's suggestion was just a joke. Of course, she could see the drawbacks of this suggestion. He also did not want the city that he had lived in for 18 years to be completely destroyed because of a war. After all, this ordinary district contained a lot of his memories that he would never be able to forget in this lifetime. Young Mistress Xianyuan, please think of another way. This idea really won't work. Sword Immortal Ling Su pleaded again. Sword Immortal Ling Su, there's something that I think you must be clear about. Gu Xuanyuan's tone suddenly changed, and she suddenly adopted an attitude that indicated that she didn't want to interfere anymore. You are the chairman of Yuzhang City's Sword Committee. You should be the one to solve these problems. I can't do too much for you. After all, when the battle is over, I will be preparing to escape. This. Sword Immortal Ling Su felt a wave of awkwardness wash over him when he heard Gu Xianyuan say that she was going to flee for her life later. Of course he knew why Gu Xianyuan wanted to flee for her life. Young Mistress Xianyuan, you are a great hero of Yuzhang City, and also a great benefactor of Yuzhang City. Please stay in Yuzhang City with peace of mind. I, Sword Immortal Ling Su, will do my best to defend you. Even if I have to bet the entire Yuzhang City, I will definitely stop those bastards from the Sword Committee headquarters and ensure your safety and freedom. Sword Immortal Ling Su said solemnly. Thank you. Gu Xianyuan looked at Sword Immortal Ling Su in surprise. She didn't think that Sword Immortal Ling Su would be so responsible. Sword Immortal Ling Su's words meant that he would completely oppose the Sword Committee headquarters. When that happened, the pressure that Sword Immortal Ling Su would have to bear would probably be even higher than the heavens. There's no need to do this. Gu Xianyuan shook her head. In the future, Yuzhang City will undergo a large-scale reconstruction, and this will require the help of the Sword Committee headquarters. I can't delay the lives of others in Yuzhang City just because of me. I will handle this matter myself. Sword Immortal Ling Su, you can represent Yuzhang City and remain silent. Then how do you plan to handle this? Sword Immortal Ling Su paused. The people from the Sword Committee headquarters will definitely not let you off. It's not a big deal. Gu Xianyuan looked in the direction of Yanjing City with disdain. When I rule over the world, everything will melt away. Sword Immortal Ling Su was dazed for a moment. Only now did he realize the difference between him and Gu Xianyuan. She was someone who was determined to stand at the top of the world. How could she care about a mere wanted poster? Then I, Sword Immortal Ling Su, wish Miss Xianyuan good luck in ascending to the throne as soon as possible. Sword Immortal Ling Su bowed to Gu Xianyuan. All right, Master Ling Su, you should think about how to deal with this atom. Gu Xianyuan accepted Sword Immortal Ling Su's bow with a clear conscience. Then, she awkwardly changed the topic. I have to think of a way to lure him out of the normal area. Sword Immortal Ling Su wasn't an idiot. It was just that Gu Xianyuan had blocked all of his decisions previously, so Sword Immortal Ling Su was too lazy to use his brain. Now that Gu Xianyuan had washed her hands of this matter, Sword Immortal Ling Su's intelligence had returned. Sword Immortal Ling Su was right. As long as they left the normal area, they would be protected by the super-dimensional barrier system. Then, no matter how intense the battle was, it wouldn't be able to harm Yuzhang City in the slightest. This was indeed the best solution. But this is also a troublesome part. The super-dimensional barrier system has already been activated. The Yuan Ko outside can't come in, and the Yuan Ko inside can't come out either. Unless we close the dimensional barrier system again, Adam won't be able to leave even if he wants to. Sword Immortal Ling Su suggested to himself. However, he quickly rejected this idea. Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't want to experience the intense battles and extremely dangerous situations that had taken place again. Thus, the idea of opening the super-dimensional barrier system to let Adam out was naturally abandoned by Sword Immortal Ling Su. That's right, there's also the quantum teleportation formation. Let me see if there are any large quantum teleportation arrays in the normal area that can connect with the quantum teleportation arrays outside Yuzhang City. Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately had a new idea. He immediately closed his eyes and flipped through his personal terminal. After a while, a helpless expression appeared on his face. This is troublesome. There were originally several quantum teleportation arrays outside the city. But in order to prevent Yuan Ko from attacking the city through the quantum teleportation arrays outside the city like he did 4 years ago, all of these quantum teleportation arrays have been removed. Now, only the quantum teleportation array at the transit station can still be used. Transit station? Gu Xianyuan, who had been listening to Sword Immortal Ling Su talk to himself, finally understood why Sword Immortal Ling Su would say that this was troublesome. If they used the quantum teleportation array to send Adam back to the transit station, then this transit station would definitely be completely destroyed by the following battle. When that time came, humans would have to expend a great deal of effort to find a new location to build a new transit station. The transit station wasn't an ordinary place. It was a permanent fortification that Yuzhang City had carefully chosen. It was needless to say how much manpower and material resources were needed to build such a transit station. More importantly, because the location was outside the city, there was bound to be a huge risk when building the transit station. And once the location of the transit station was exposed and discovered by Yuan Ko, then when Yuzhang City needed to activate the transit station, it was likely that Yuan Ko would have already completely surrounded the transit station. All in all, the manpower, material resources, and energy required would not be much easier than rebuilding a normal area. There must be another way. Sword Immortal Ling Su once again eliminated the idea of using the quantum teleportation array. But apart from shutting down the super-dimensional barrier system and using 2 teleportation arrays, is there any other way to send this guy out? Sword Immortal Ling Su fell into deep thought. That's right. Miss Xian Yuan, you. Sword Immortal Ling Su suddenly remembered that after Gu Xian Yuan subdued Kong Na this morning, she seemed to have taken Kong Na to the core area for a meal. And Gu Xian Yuan didn't seem to have used any other methods from beginning to end. She directly passed through the dimensional barrier system of the core area and directly brought Kong Na in. Could it be that in Gu Xian Yuan's hands, Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately raised his head to ask Gu Xian Yuan, but found that Gu Xian Yuan's figure had already disappeared from his side. Looking into the distance, he was surprised to find that Gu Xian Yuan was in the air, flying back in Kong Na's direction. This Miss Gu Xian Yuan, it seems like she already has a plan. She's been toying with me from beginning to end. Sword Immortal Ling Su shook his head with a wry smile. On the other side, Gu Xian Yuan had already flown back to Kong Na's body. But this time, Gu Xian Yuan didn't need to hide in Kong Na's mouth. Instead, she stood on Kong Na's head majestically like Ling Ling, staring fiercely at the Hong-grade Yuan Ko atom before her. What is Miss Xian Yuan planning to do? Everyone present, including those ordinary people who were watching the live broadcast on TV, had their attention firmly fixed on Gu Xian Yuan. They were secretly guessing what Gu Xian Yuan planned to do next. I understand now. Miss Xian Yuan must be planning to instruct Kong Na to lure this atom to the outer city wall of the normal area. Sword Immortal Ling Su guessed in his mind. And he was very sure of his guess. However, what happened next made everyone's jaws drop. Kong Na transform. Gu Xian Yuan, who was standing on Kong Na's head, suddenly shouted. This scene looked just like those shameless Chunibyu magical girls. Oh! Kong Na nodded adorably. Then, the 2 dragon horns on her head instantly retracted back into her head. Kong Na's body was enveloped by a beam of magical light. After a dazzling burst of light, she transformed back into the cute little lowly Kong Na-chan from before. But what was extremely incongruous was that Gu Xian Yuan was riding on Kong Na's neck. Chapter 1141. Everyone could imagine such a scene. Cute lowly wearing a cute pink and white princess dress and white cotton socks was actually riding on the neck of a woman. Moreover, this woman's long legs were already taller than the lowly's entire height. When she was riding on Kong Na's neck, Kong Na's heels only reached her calves. Moreover, this woman was very beautiful. She was the goddess in the hearts of all the men in Yuzhang City. Under normal circumstances, everyone would often see a scene of a young and beautiful mother riding on the neck of a cute and silly daughter. However, once this scene was reversed, and the mother was riding on the neck of the lowly daughter, this scene would be indescribable. Anyway, everyone suffered a huge visual and mental impact, an impact that could not be erased in a lifetime. Later on, many gentlemen in Yuzhang City were affected by this scene in front of them. It deeply inspired them to create doujinshi paintings that made people's blood boil, but at the same time, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Later on, a huge school of lowly was born, the Lowly Night School. Gu Xian Yuan was also regarded as the ancestor of the Lowly Night School by these gentlemen, and was later deeply admired, of course, because this scene had a huge negative impact on a certain Jiendi. This school was also deeply suppressed. It was not until many years later that they dared to come out in the open. For a period of time in the future, all of them had to hide in the internet and tremble. In fact, at this time, Gu Xianyuan also felt very subtle. In the past, he was a guy who was ridden by a lowly. Qing Pin's favorite thing was to settle down in Gohan's baby pouch. The story and rumors of a lowly living in Gohan's arms were also widely spread in Yuzhong City. Now that the situation had been reversed, Gu Xianyuan was riding on the body of a lowly. This feeling was very subtle. While it made Gu Xianyuan feel awkward, it did indeed hide a wonderful sense of comfort. Of course, Gu Xianyuan was riding on Kong Na's body not because of some special hobby, but because Kong Na's body shape was the same as Gu Xianyuan's, so Gu Xianyuan could more easily launch a fierce attack on Adam. Kong Na in her lowly form was not as strong as Kong Na in her dragon form, but there was not too much of a drop. Her speed and strength were also at the level of flood-level Yuan Ko. As Gu Xianyuan's mount, Kong Na could still provide a huge boost to Gu Xianyuan's ability. And for Gu Xianyuan, the most important thing was that Gu Xianyuan became very flexible. Don't look at how powerful dragon knights were in novels. Actually, it was completely bullshit. Imagine yourself sitting on top of a mountain and wanting to launch an attack on another mountain. You would know how ridiculous it was. Unless your knight spear was a few kilometers long, you wouldn't even know if you could hit your enemy. It was like a 3- or 4-year-old boy's little brother entering the body of a seasoned European or American woman. It would feel empty inside, without any feeling. When a human rode on the back of a dragon, the role of the human itself became very insignificant. At most, it would be like Gu Xianyuan just now, secretly commanding the dragon to fight. If a human wanted to help the dragon in battle, it would be almost like a fantasy. However, once Kong Na transformed into the same size as Gu Xianyuan, becoming the size that a real mount should have, then the strength of a giant dragon would be fully displayed. Firstly, Gu Xianyuan's speed would be terrifyingly enhanced. Kong Na in her lowly form would be able to reach a terrifying speed of 10 times the speed of sound. This speed was 20 times Gu Xianyuan's maximum speed. This would allow a swordsman who was extremely skilled in swordsmanship to possess extreme speed. This way, the effect of 1 + 1 wouldn't be as simple as 2. Moreover, Kong Na could attach her thunder and lightning to Gu Xianyuan's Immortal Slayer Sword, so that apart from its own attribute, the Immortal Slayer Sword had an additional layer of powerful thunder and lightning effect. Therefore, everyone saw this scene. Gu Xianyuan and Kong Na's silhouettes had completely left the range of human vision. They could only see innumerable lightning bolts constantly revolving around Adam. Almost in an instant, Adam's body was riddled with innumerable wounds, and every wound was flickering with golden lightning bolts. While causing tremendous damage to Adam, it was also able to prevent Adam's astonishing regeneration ability from automatically healing. At this moment, Adam's greatest weakness was revealed. As one of the purest humans, Adam could still not be affected by the ring of logic. He could purely use his purest strength to cause tremendous damage to everything around him. However, once he faced a powerful supernatural ability, his pure strength would become limited. If it was any other flood-class Yuan Ko, he could release a powerful area of effect attack around him, or simply an unavoidable attack that would definitely hit him. This way, he could at least deal with Gu Xianyuan and Kong Na's fighting style. Unfortunately, Adam didn't have such strength. He could only use his hands to helplessly swat that annoying fly like a human swatting a fly. Under normal circumstances, after 20 to 30 attempts, a human might be able to swat that damned fly once or twice. However, once this fly possessed supersonic speed, wanting to swat such a fly would become extremely laughable. This was simply an impossible task. To be honest, such a battle was quite boring. People couldn't even see how the one who took the initiative to attack. They could only see that Adam had no ability to resist at all. He was constantly passively enduring the attacks. More and more wounds appeared on his body, and in the end, he became weaker and weaker. He no longer had the awe-inspiring, imposing manner of Ling. In this way, Adam's vitality was constantly depleted by the combination of Gu Xian Yuan and Kong Na. In less than 20 minutes, a lake of blood appeared under Adam's feet. After draining the last drop of blood from his body, he fell straight to the ground and closed his pale yellow, turbid eyes. A dimensional vortex began to appear and absorb Adam's body. This time, Adam was truly dead. He became the first flood-class Yuan Ko to die in the hands of Gu Xian Yuan. Not counting the Nether River Patriarch, he was a desolate class Yuan Ko. After Adam's body completely returned, Gu Xian Yuan finally exited from her lightning state and rode on Kong Na's neck back to the city wall of the core zone. Phew! It's a little more tiring than I thought. Don't look at how he died in the hands of Gu Xian Yuan without any ability to fight back. In fact, Gu Xian Yuan did not have it easy. Kong Na's speed far exceeded Gu Xian Yuan's usual speed. Gu Xian Yuan had to be fully focused and highly focused in order to barely be able to fight at 20 times the speed of sound. Every minute was a huge test for Gu Xian Yuan. It was more than a few times more difficult than the test of the 12 skyscraping temples in the game. Therefore, when Gu Xianyuan once again appeared in front of everyone, her body was completely soaked in sweat. Her clothes were tightly stuck to her body under the absorption of the sweat, reflecting a perfect body full of youthful energy. At this moment, the entire core zone wall was filled with the smell of hormones. Gu Xianyuan immediately noticed this smell. As a man, Gu Xianyuan naturally hated this smell. Therefore, she immediately released the sword qi in her body and pushed up all the clothes stuck to her body. At the same time, the sword qi quickly rubbed against her clothes, producing a huge amount of heat that quickly evaporated the sweat in her clothes. In just the blink of an eye, Gu Xianyuan's soaked clothes became extremely dry again. Sigh. What a pity! If only I could look at her a few more times. Everyone sighed in their hearts. It was a pity that such a beautiful sight could only be seen for a short while, and could not be enjoyed for a long time. Sword Immortal Ling Su looked at Gu Xianyuan with a complicated expression. He had thought that Gu Xianyuan was only planning to lure Adam out of the normal zone, and then use Kong Na to end the battle outside of Yuzhong City. But he did not expect to be slapped in the face again in the end. Gu Xianyuan actually killed Adam in the city. At the same time, what was even more frightening was that Gu Xianyuan had kept the entire battlefield within an area of less than 1 square kilometer. Although all the land within this 1 square kilometer had been turned into ruins, other areas were safe and sound, unaffected by Adam's torment. This was already the best result for Yuzhong City. Otherwise, even if Adam was lured out of the city, there would probably be countless high-rise buildings destroyed in the battle along the way, just like when Adam came. How strong is this Gu Xianyuan's combat strength? Sword Immortal Ling Su's eyes wandered as he thought to himself. The fact that Gu Xianyuan has combat strength equivalent to an immortal sword rank sword wielder is already undeniable. What Sword Immortal Ling Su is really doubtful about is whether Gu Xianyuan has the combat strength of a Hong-level Yuan Ko, which is an Emperor sword rank sword wielder. Gu Xianyuan didn't have it. But there were indeed 2 Hong-level Yuan Ko who had fallen in Gu Xianyuan's hands. But even if Gu Xianyuan had the combat strength of an Emperor sword rank sword wielder, these 2 victories were not entirely based on Gu Xianyuan's own strength. The previous victory over Kong Na was because Kong Na was too hungry, and she was seriously injured by Wangshu Sword's all-out attack. As for defeating Adam this time, one reason was that Adam's weakness was too obvious, and the other was that Gu Xianyuan could also rely on Kong Na's strength to do so. From this, it could be seen that there was still a gap between Gu Xianyuan's combat strength and that of a Hong-level Yuan Ko. Forget it. let's not think about this troublesome problem. The stronger Gu Xianyuan was, the better it would be for Yuzhang City. This was for sure. Cough cough. Miss Xianyuan, shouldn't you come down now? Right at this time, Misaka Mikoto suddenly coughed and looked at the little lowly Kong Na, who was riding under Gu Xianyuan's crotch. Gu Xianyuan grabbed Kong Na, who was under her crotch, and pulled her into her arms. What? Kong Na, who was pulled out, was still a little dissatisfied. She pouted and said, I haven't had enough of being ridden. Chapter 1142. A total of 1623 sword-bearers died, 3,654 sword-bearers lost their ability to fight, 7,213 sword maidens were lost, and 4,002 sword maidens were unable to be repaired, including 3 natural sword maidens: Ancient Sword Maiden's Spring Wind Sword, Ancient Sword Maiden's Sea Snake Sword, and Treasure Sword Maiden's Guanghan Sword. A total of 237,261 ordinary human casualties were found, 196,213 relatively intact bodies were found, 35217 unidentifiable bodies were found, and 5,371 bodies were completely missing. Among them, 215,637 people died in battle, 100,761 died in the battle to defend the city walls in the normal area, 114917 died in the battle to defend the city walls in the core area, of which 56,238 died in the battle to defend the wall of flesh and blood. A total of 2,271 buildings were lost in battle in the normal area, among which 1062 buildings were completely destroyed, 1211 buildings required urgent repair, and about 1.03 million residents were left homeless, currently temporarily resettled in various shelters. A total of 21 buildings were lost in battle in the core area, all residents have been properly resettled. A total of 163 damaged areas were found in the outer city walls. The total damaged area is 12.7 kilometers long. A total of 38 damaged areas were found in the core area. The total damaged area is 1.9 kilometers long. Apart from buildings, a total of 1,360 billion renminbi was lost in various economic products in the normal area, including 830 billion renminbi was lost in the private economy, and 630 billion renminbi was lost in public property. Food and other daily necessities were moved in time, and all of them were well preserved. There were no large-scale losses, which can last for 10 years and 6 months. Sword Immortal Ling Su stared at the piles and piles of data in front of him with a headache. This was the second day after the battle had ended. Yuzhang City's response speed could be considered quite fast. In the short span of a day, they had accurately calculated all of the property losses and reported it to Sword Immortal Ling Su's desk. Looking at these shocking losses, Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't appear to be very sad, and there was even a hint of a smile on his face. This wasn't because Sword Immortal Ling Su was heartless, but because these losses were much smaller than Sword Immortal Ling Su had expected. According to Sword Immortal Ling Su's original plan, the entire Yuzhang city would be completely destroyed in this sudden attack. By then, the total losses would be tens or even hundreds of times greater than the current losses. After all, by then, the entire Yuzhang city would no longer exist. The remaining humans would probably still be slowly advancing on the long road of escape. If the current losses were equivalent to cutting off a piece of Yuzhang City's flesh, then the losses that Sword Immortal Ling Su envisioned were equivalent to a death by 1,000 cuts. Sword Immortal Ling Su was already very satisfied with this result. The foundation of Yuzhang City was still intact, and it would only take 3 to 4 years at most for these losses to be recovered, and Yuzhang City could also be rebuilt. Under his leadership, Yuzhang City did not suffer the complete destruction of the previous few major invasions. It's all thanks to Miss Gu Xianyuan this time. Sword Immortal Ling Su knew very well that the reason why Yuzhang City had been able to escape this calamity had nothing to do with him. The true culprit was that young Mistress Gu Xian Yuan who had suddenly appeared. If it wasn't for Gu Xian Yuan, then what awaited Yuzhang City would have been the latter outcome. Speaking of which, I really can't bear to part with her. Young Mistress Gu Xian Yuan actually left just like that. I didn't even properly thank her once. What made Sword Immortal Ling Su feel a little ashamed was that after the battle was completely over, Gu Xian Yuan didn't stay in Yuzhang City for even a single night. She directly left Yuzhang City in the afternoon. Gu Xian Yuan didn't say why she was in such a hurry to leave, but Sword Immortal Ling Su could vaguely guess some of it. It was nothing more than Shi Juyuan's life and Lucihua, who he had sent to London. After the battle in Yuzhang City, Gu Xian Yuan must have been very worried about her younger brother's disciple, so she hurried over to bring Lucihua back. Thinking of this, Sword Immortal Ling Su felt waves of guilt welling up in his heart. If he hadn't conspired with Shi Juyuan back then, how could Shi Juyuan have the authority to directly send away a sword pavilion lord? These were all mistakes he made when his desire for power clouded his mind. Sword Immortal Ling Su had also told Gu Xian Yuan before that he hoped to set off with Gu Xian Yuan and bring Lucihua back. But Gu Xian Yuan refused. In her words, there were still a lot of troubles in Yuzhang City that needed Sword Immortal Ling Su to resolve, so it was best for Sword Immortal Ling Su to stay in Yuzhang City. This was the result she wanted to see. Gu Xian Yuan was speaking the truth, so Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't insist anymore. He could only watch as Gu Xian Yuan left Yuzhang City alone under the setting sun. But this young Mistress Gu Xian Yuan really left me with a huge problem. After expressing his longing and gratitude for Gu Xian Yuan, Sword Immortal Ling Su couldn't help but fall into a state of distress. There was no other reason than that Gu Xian Yuan left him with a huge problem. The lightning dragon, Kong Na Kamui. According to Gu Xian Yuan, Kong Na had made a deal with Yuzhang City. Every month, Yuzhang City would give Kong Na enough high-purity nuclear fuel rods to consume, and Kong Na would also become the protector of Yuzhang City. Kong Na's trading partners were all in Yuzhang City, so Kong Na should naturally also live in Yuzhang City, and not by her side. Sword Immortal Ling Su was very conflicted about this. Kong Na was a flood-level Yuan Ko. If she could wholeheartedly fight to protect Yuzhang City, then it would naturally be a great thing for Yuzhang City. But the problem was that Kong Na was still a Yuan Ko after all, and they were both natural enemies of humans. Although she was living well in the city now, if she suddenly went berserk and suddenly wreaked havoc in the city, then Yuzhang City would be caught off guard and very likely suffer far greater losses than yesterday. Actually, the best solution was to let Kong Na find a place to stay outside of Yuzhang City. That way, even if they went berserk, they wouldn't cause great harm to Yuzhang City itself. Moreover, if Yuzhang City was attacked, she could also appear at the first instance to protect Yuzhang City. Unfortunately, this suggestion was rejected by Kong Na. After eating a meal of red braised pork at Chanel, she completely refused to leave the core area. Moreover, she brazenly expressed that even if she was chased out of the core area, she would try her best to come back. For example, she would launch an attack on Yuzhang City's super-dimensional protection system a few days ago, and so on. Sword Immortal Ling Su and Gu Xian Yuan had no choice but to agree to let Kong Na stay in the core area. However, both of them had to bring along sealing equipment to seal off their own powers. At the same time, Gu Xian Yuan arranged for them to stay in the Phoenix House, which was also the house of Gu Xian Yuan's younger brother, Gohan, in the core area. It was stipulated that Kong Na was not allowed to leave Mount Emperor without the approval of the Sword Committee headquarters. At the same time, Sword Immortal Ling Su also promised Kong Na that he would send about a ton of various delicacies every day as the price for her to obediently stay in Mount Emperor as a foodie. After that, Misaka Mikoto privately told Sword Immortal Ling Su not to worry too much about Kong Na. She told Sword Immortal Ling Su that the impurities in Kong Na's body had completely disappeared. At this time, Kong Na could not be considered as Yuan Ko. At most, she was just a lazy little female dragon. As long as she was fed well every day, there would not be too much of a problem. As for Erling Shin, Yang Jian, this fellow immediately returned to his Erling Shin temple at the mouth of the Guan River after the battle. However, Erling Shin, Yang Jian, promised Sword Immortal Ling Su that within 3 years, as long as Sword Immortal Ling Su sent someone to Erling Shin Temple to send him a message, regardless of the reason, he would immediately rush to Yuzhong City and fight to protect Yuzhong City. Regarding this, Sword Immortal Ling Su secretly thanked the heavens and earth. If Erling Shin, Yang Jian, was like Kong Na and stubbornly refused to leave the core area, then Sword Immortal Ling Su really would not be able to do anything to Erling Shin, Yang Jian. However, Kong Na's problem was only one of the bigger ones. There was still an even bigger problem, and that was the Ring of Law that was currently hovering in the sky above Yuzhong City. After capturing Ling Boli and Osaka, the Fu Sang celestial system should have been completely defeated. This Ring of Law should have immediately returned to Fu Sang Island and left the territory of Yuzhong City. However, this Ring of Law seemed to have decided that Yuzhong City was its home. It stayed in the sky above Yuzhong City and did not go anywhere else. As a result, all supernatural forces within 500 kilometers of Yuzhong City were still in a state of lockdown. It was a very awkward situation. Yuzhong City could not do anything to the Ring of Law. Even if it was Sword Immortal Ling Su, as long as he left the protection of Yuzhong City's super-dimensional wall system, he would immediately become a mortal who had lost his sword essence. There was no way he could do anything to the Ring of Law in the sky. Moreover, according to the analysis of the Ring of Law by the research department, this Ring of Law was not a physical entity, but an existence that existed between spirit and rules. Against such an existence, even if it was Jiendi, he would not be able to do anything. Unless this Jiendi was the Jiendi who was proficient in rules, then he would be able to forcibly expel the Ring of Law. In short, this was a message to Sword Immortal Ling Su that unless this Ring of Law wanted to leave on its own, it could stay in the sky above Yuzhong City as long as it wanted. Even Long Shi Jiendi would not be able to expel the Ring of Law. Sword Immortal Ling Su thought about it again. This Ring of Law did not seem to be too bad for Yuzhong City. The effect of the Ring of Law was also effective for Yuan Ko. On the contrary, humans who had the protection of the super-dimensional wall system could instead use their own power freely through the super-dimensional wall system. In this way, even if Yuan Ko gathered an army several times larger than before, he would not be able to break through Yuzhong City's defenses. Yuzhong City was many times safer than it would be without the Ring of Law. From a certain perspective, this Ring of Law could be considered as the guardian of Yuzhong City. However, there were other problems as well. Yuzhong City itself could not support the 40 million people in Yuzhong City. Yuzhong City had to make full use of the land around Yuzhong City for farming, mining, industry, and other things in order to support the 40 million people in Yuzhong City. Previously, Yuzhong City relied on the protection of the sword-bearers to establish an absolute safety zone of about 200 kilometers. However, once the sword-bearers left Yuzhong City, they would become ordinary people. The idea of relying on the sword-bearers to protect the surroundings of Yuzhong City became an unrealistic delusion. Thus, the only people who could protect the surroundings of Yuzhong City were the ordinary people themselves. Chapter 1143. In the first few days, Sword Immortal Ling Su was still hopeful that the Ring of Perfection would leave on its own. However, after a month had passed, the Ring of Perfection had not moved at all, and Sword Immortal Ling Su's hopes were dashed. Then, Misaka Mikoto sent news to Yuzhang City. The 200-level Yuan Ko from the Fusang Celestial System proposed a negotiation with the Freedom Metropolis. As long as Yuzhang City released Ling Boli and Ming Rixiang, the Fusang Celestial System was willing to remove the Ring of Perfection floating above Yuzhang City. Otherwise, the Ring of Perfection would remain above Yuzhang City until Ling Boli and Ming Rixiang were released. Ling Boli was the main culprit behind the deaths of more than 200,000 people in Yuzhang City. Of these 200,000 people, more than 100,000 died directly at the hands of Ling Boli's robot, Atom. Yuzhang City had long been filled with anger towards Ling Boli and Ming Rixiang. If it was not for the sake of research, Ming Rixiang and Ling Boli would have been executed by Sword Immortal Ling Su in public. Taking Ling Boli for research was a reasonable outcome that the people could accept. However, if Ling Boli and Ming Rixiang were used in exchange, the people of Yuzhang City would definitely tear themselves apart. Moreover, if they released Ling Boli because of such a threat, then the Fuso Divine System would make trouble for Yuzhang City in a few days and order Yuzhang City to pay all kinds of prices. Wouldn't Yuzhang City become an out-and-out rich idiot? After careful consideration, Sword Immortal Ling Su righteously rejected the Fusang Celestial System's request, and the Ring of Perfection would remain above Yuzhang City's head. As such, how to effectively deal with the threat posed by the Ring of Perfection in the long run had become a problem that Sword Immortal Ling Su had to solve. At this time, Sword Immortal Ling Su thought of the hot weapons that could shine in battle. Under the illumination of the Ring of Perfection, the power of hot weapons was fully displayed. Even the most elite Yuan Ko army was utterly defeated in the face of hot weapons, and they were forced to retreat by the humans. When the sword-bearers lost their strength outside the city, firearms could perfectly fill the gap left by the sword-bearers. It could even be said that the firearms were superior to the sword-bearers. Before this, due to the limited number of sword-bearers, Yuan Ko could often sneak into the vicinity of Yuzhang City and cause great harm to the people working there. However, once ordinary people and firearms were used, this drawback would no longer exist. With Yuzhang's industrial system operating at full capacity, Yuzhang could produce 100,000 firearms in a month. In a year, they could arm 1,000,000 soldiers. Coupled with the 1,000,000 firearms left behind, Yuzhang City could have an army of 2,000,000 soldiers. These 2,000,000 soldiers could build a ring of fortifications around Yuzhang City, and the area within 500 kilometers around Yuzhang City would be impregnable. Not even a single Yuan Ko would be able to invade Yuzhang City through the defensive line, and the surroundings of Yuzhang City would be completely safe. What was even more amazing was that the recruitment of 2,000,000 soldiers did not affect Yuzhang City's own productivity. Yuzhang City's population was surplus to begin with, and the labor force it really needed was only 3 to 4 million. In all of Yuzhang City, there were about 7 to 8 million able-bodied males who stayed at home with nothing to do. They could only rely on Yuzhang City's living allowance, and fight in the game to kill their time and excess energy. However, this was undoubtedly a huge unstable factor for society. Now, the most unstable 2 million of these 7 to 8 million able-bodied males were selected and sent into the army to undergo rigorous military training. The security level of Yuzhang City would be raised by who knew how many times. From a certain perspective, this was a good thing for everyone. Therefore, at this moment, there was a detailed plan drawn up by the elite advisors of the Sword Committee headquarters in front of Sword Immortal Ling Su. According to the plan drawn up on this plan, Yuzhang City would use a year's time to manufacture all kinds of firearms and equipment, build fortifications around Yuzhang City, and train a regular firearm army of 2,000,000 soldiers. In this way, Yuzhang City's security would be impregnable, and there would be nothing to worry about. Sword Immortal Ling Su immediately approved this plan, but he couldn't help but recall what Gu Xianyuan had said to him before she left. Sword Immortal Ling Su still remembered that when Gu Xianyuan said these words to him, her expression was very serious, and even a little fearful. These troops must be disbanded immediately. Gu Xianyuan said resolutely and decisively, all firearms must be taken back immediately, and these people must be forbidden from touching firearms for life. At the same time, those ordinary people who temporarily hold military power should be commended, rewarded with citizenship, or given certain special privileges and rights. In short, we just have to hang them up high and let them be idols. We must not allow them to have any unrealistic thoughts. Especially that Zhao Qinfeng. I suggest that he be given a grand commendation and participate in all kinds of variety shows every day. After that, we should give him the status of a council member. In short, let him be immersed in endless vanity and quarrels, and not give him any more opportunities to touch firearms or troops. Sword Immortal Ling Su remembered that Gu Xianyuan had warned him about firearms many times, far more than she had warned him about other aspects. And there was only one central idea in these words. Firearms troops were an extremely dangerous thing. This time, it was only because of Yuzhang City's crisis that they had no choice but to disband firearms troops immediately after this. At the same time, all topics related to firearms must be suppressed in public. Yuzhang City would never need firearms troops, and this was a huge threat to Yuzhang City. Isn't Miss Xianyuan a little too conservative? It feels a bit like those stubborn conservatives in those novels who hold on to their ancestors' things and refuse to let go. Sword Immortal Ling Su actually didn't quite agree with Gu Xuanyuan's advice. He was very clear why Gu Xianyuan was worried. She was worried that when ordinary people mastered martial power, they would attack and retaliate against the sword-bearers, thereby causing chaos in the entire society. But Sword Immortal Ling Su only felt that Gu Xianyuan was making a big fuss over a minor issue. Did Gu Xianyuan not see how those ordinary people used their own flesh and blood to block the enemy's attack at the last moment of Yuzhang City? What wonderful companions and comrades they were! All of them were willing to shed their blood for Yuzhang City. Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't believe that such a group of hot-blooded men would eventually become the scourge of Yuzhang City. Moreover, whether or not these troops would rebel depended on who was in control. As long as all the middle and high-ranking officers in the troops were controlled by sword-bearers, then the control of the troops would be very stable. Even if some ordinary ambitious people wanted to cause trouble, they wouldn't be able to do so. As for that Zhao Qinfeng, Sword Immortal Ling Su could indeed sense that this guy was filled with ambition, the ambition to climb up the rank. But which youngster these days didn't have ambition? Wasn't he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, also filled with ambition in the past? If he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, didn't have ambition, then he wouldn't have been able to reach the level of a Sword Immortal. Of course, the command of the firearms troops couldn't be given to this Zhao Qinfeng. Sword Immortal Ling Su also decided to respect Gu Xuanyuan's opinion and remove Zhao Qinfeng from the direct command position, not allowing him to directly command the troop. But this Zhao Qinfeng was indeed a very talented person. In the entire Yuzhang City, there was no one more proficient in firearms than him. It would be too much of a pity to let him become a member of the council who would wrangle with others all day long. After a period of careful consideration, Sword Immortal Ling Su decided to establish a firearms military academy. Then, he appointed Zhao Qinfeng as the principal of this military academy. This was a perfect opportunity to make use of his strengths and help Yuzhang City cultivate a group of military talents who were proficient in firearms. Of course, this was a decision to be made a month later. Right now, Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't have time to consider such a complicated matter. Finally, everything has been settled. Sword Immortal Ling Su let out a long sigh of relief when he saw that the mountainous pile of documents in front of him had all been approved. His busy day had finally come to an end. Just as Sword Immortal Ling Su was preparing to go back to rest, a series of heavy knocks on his door gave him a fright. "Who is it? Who dares to directly knock on my door?" Sword Immortal Ling Su's expression turned a little ugly when he heard the knocks on his door. The standard procedure to see Sword Immortal Ling Su was to make an appointment in advance and then send a message through his own mystic technique. Who would directly knock on his office door like this? Although the door was meant for people to knock in the first place. "Come in." Sword Immortal Ling Su wanted to see just who was so daring. In the end, a man rushed in with an anxious expression on his face. This man was about 30 years old and had a dignified appearance. He exuded the aura of a noble young master. However, his face was pale and his steps were unsteady. It was clear that this noble young master didn't know how to control his desires normally. "I was wondering who it was. So it's third young master sure." Sword Immortal Ling Su recognized this noble young master. This person was none other than Shi Juyuan's third son, the fellow known as third young master Shi. Shi Juyuan had 3 sons. His first son died a few days after being born. Apparently, he was born with a congenital deficiency that even the medical pod couldn't cure. His second son lived until he was 12 years old. However, at such a young age, he didn't learn good things. He wanted to use his status to screw his beautiful teacher. In the end, this beautiful teacher had a sword-wielder's boyfriend. This sword-wielder didn't care about Shi Juyuan at all and directly killed the little brat. Then, he ran off to Yanjing City. Because this sword-wielder had a recording of second young master Shi forcing himself on his girlfriend, and Yanjing City wasn't a place that cared about Shi Juyuan, this sword-wielder was sentenced to guard the beacon for 5 years. Right now, he was still living a carefree life. Therefore, the third young master of the Shi clan was Shi Juyuan's last remaining descendant, and he was also spoiled to the extreme by Shi Juyuan. He was treated like a child in the palm of his hand, afraid that he would fall, and in the mouth of his mouth, afraid that he would melt. He was a famous bastard in Yuzhong City. Shi Juyuan had brought him to see Sword Immortal Ling Su a few times, and he had even shamelessly asked Sword Immortal Ling Su to take care of the third young master of the Shi clan. Looks like this idiot already knows that his old man is gone. Seeing third young master Shi's anxious expression, Sword Immortal Ling Su knew that the news of Shi Juyuan's death could no longer be hidden. Chapter 1144. Lord Ling Su, my father has gone missing. I've searched the entire Yuzhong City, but I couldn't find him. In the end, I asked the headquarters of the Sword Committee, and they told me that my father's life signal has already stopped responding. They said that my father is dead. Is this true? Third young master Shi asked anxiously. Saying this, Sword Immortal Ling Su couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Actually, third young master Shi had already asked him about Shi Juyuan a few days ago, but he was deceived by Sword Immortal Ling Su. Third young master Shi saw that he was being thwarted by Sword Immortal Ling Su, so he could only ask the Sword Committee headquarters about Shi Juyuan. After all, Shi Juyuan was the head of the Emperor's sword family. His life and death was something that the Sword Committee headquarters had to pay attention to. Therefore, the Sword Committee headquarters would take the initiative to investigate Shi Juyuan's situation. This way, Sword Immortal Ling Su couldn't deceive them. Previously, Sword Immortal Ling Su kept the news of Shi Juyuan's death in Yuzhong City, and the information was also kept in Yuzhong City. He didn't report it to the Sword Committee headquarters. However, the Sword Committee headquarters had the highest authority in the human world. They had the right to access all the information stored in Yuzhong City's highest-level AI system. Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't have the right or ability to stop them. The news of Shi Juyuan's death could no longer be hidden. Since the Sword Committee headquarters said that your father's personal terminal has lost its signal, then your father's personal terminal has really lost its signal. He's probably dead, Sword Immortal Ling Su said calmly. But that's not what you told me a few days ago. Didn't you tell my father that he only went missing in the battle with Yuan Ko? Didn't you tell me that he might still be alive? Third young master sure couldn't suppress his emotions and roared. Watch your tone, Shi Tianshou. Sword Immortal Ling Su slammed the table a few times in dissatisfaction. You're now facing the chairman of the Yuzhang City Sword Committee, a mighty immortal sword-tier sword wielder. As an ancient sword-tier sword wielder, have you forgotten the etiquette between superiors and subordinates? He scolded with a look of disgust. Shi Tianshou was third young master Shi's real name. When he heard Sword Immortal Ling Su say his name out loud, third young master Shi knew that things were a little different from what he had expected. Yuzhang City was no longer the Yuzhang City of a few days ago. My apologies, Lord Ling Su, I was rude. Third young master Shi lowered his head. As a child who has lost his father, I want to know how his current condition is. How did he die? Didn't you already go to the sword committee to ask? Didn't they tell you how your father died? Is there a need to ask me? Sword Immortal Ling Su looked at third young master Shi with a teasing expression. It's that woman, it's that beautiful bitch who killed my father, isn't it? Third young master Shi's face turned hideous. Why? You already knew that my father died in the hands of that bitch. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't he arrest her right away? Avenge my father? You better watch your mouth. Sword Immortal Ling Su scolded again. She is the savior of Yuzhang City. If it weren't for her, everyone in Yuzhang City, including you, would have died. She is not only your savior, but also the savior of the entire Yuzhang City. You must make this clear to me, or I will definitely make you bear the corresponding consequences. Bah! I don't need her to save me. The third young master of the Shi family spat. Our family has already packed up everything, and there are several spirit sword bearers protecting us. We can hide in Yanjing City anytime, anywhere. We don't need that bitch to save us. Shameless scum. Hearing third young master Shi blatantly say that his family had already packed everything, and was even preparing to recruit spirit sword-level sword bearers to protect them as they escaped, Sword Immortal Ling Su could no longer contain his anger. He directly slapped third young master Shi across the face. Third young master Shi's entire body spun 360 degrees in the air, and finally fell straight to the ground with a crisp thud. This is the reason why Miss Xianyuan killed your father. Based on your father's cowardly attitude of wanting to abandon the lives of 40 million people in Yuzhang City, even if Miss Xianyuan didn't do anything, I, Sword Immortal Ling Su, would have killed him and gotten rid of this scum, Sword Immortal Ling Su said in a powerful voice. Heh! You finally admitted that you conspired with that bitch to kill my father. You are also one of the murderers. Third young master Shi clutched his face that was swollen like a piece of bread. Whatever you say. Sword Immortal Ling Su had a look of disdain on his face. Who cared about such things? Humph. Let me tell you, Sword Immortal Ling Su, I've already recorded our entire conversation today. I'm going to share this conversation with all the spirit sword rank sword bearers and have them uphold justice for my father. The third young master of the Shi family yelled. Justice. Sword Immortal Ling Su seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. You actually have the face to talk about justice with me? Then go ahead. Go tell all the spirit sword level sword bearers what you said to me. Let's see whose side justice they're on. I'll send it to them right now. Third young master Shi panicked. Without another word, he took out his personal terminal and began to send messages to all the spirit sword level sword bearers stored in his personal terminal. But what happened next shocked third young master Shi. When he clicked to send the message, his personal terminal didn't give him the usual notification that the message had been delivered. Instead, it told him this. Sorry. You're not the other party's friend and cannot send a message. Why aren't we friends anymore? We were just eating together a few days ago. Seeing this notification, third young master Shi was completely enraged. He couldn't accept this result at all. On the other hand, Sword Immortal Ling Su was well aware of this result. In reality, immediately after the battle, Sword Immortal Ling Su had called for a meeting with all the Spirit Sword level sword bearers. As for the specific content of the meeting, no one revealed it. But the first thing these Spirit Sword level sword bearers did after the meeting was to delete third young Master Shi's friend list. After all, Shi Jueyuan was already dead. These Spirit Sword level sword bearers knew very well what kind of person third young Master Shi was. He was someone who couldn't do anything right. Who would be willing to suck up to him? They just hoped that he wouldn't spread the fire to them. Dong. Right at this moment, Sword Immortal Ling Su's personal terminal suddenly emitted a crisp and pleasant sound. Sword Immortal Ling Su closed his eyes and looked at this message. A bitter smile appeared on his face. The arrest warrant has been issued. Take a look. Sword Immortal Ling Su projected this message in the air. Third young Master Shi raised his head and saw that this was a notification letter returned from the Sword Committee headquarters. Yuzhang City Sword Committee, we have received your notification regarding the death of Spirit Sword level sword bearer Shi Jueyuan. After verification, Shi Jueyuan did die at the hands of a female sword bearer. However, because the female sword bearer's personal terminal has been destroyed and her DNA information cannot be collected, no one matching the appearance of all the female sword bearers can be found. The criminal is temporarily determined to be an unknown female. At the same time, regarding the criminal named Gu Xianyuan that you reported, after comparison with the system's database, there is no female sword bearer named Gu Xianyuan in the database. This criminal is actually out of all the database, and the Sword Committee headquarters is unable to confirm her detailed identity. However, the Sword Committee headquarters will not tolerate any kind of fratricide. After a meeting of the Sword Committee headquarters, this criminal has been named Gu Xianyuan. At the same time, due to the highest level arrest warrant for the 8 cities that have been issued globally, any sword bearer who discovers the criminal Gu Xianyuan must immediately report it to their respective Sword Committee. If the criminal is too strong, it is not recommended that normal sword bearers arrest her. The arrest shall be carried out by the Discipline Committee of each base. December 12, 3011. World Sword Bearers Joint Committee Conference. This is. Third young Master Shi looked at the document and didn't know what to say. Looks like the Sword Committee headquarters reacted very quickly. I reported it to them yesterday, and they sent me a reply today. Sure enough, the death of an old man from the Emperor Sword family is a big deal. Sword Immortal Ling Su showed this reply to third young Master Shi to tell him that he, Sword Immortal Ling Su, did not make any mistakes in the procedure, and that he shouldn't say anything more. Then when does Sword Immortal Ling Su plan to send people to arrest this criminal? Third young Master Shi raised his head and asked. Let's talk about this later. Right now there is a lot of reconstruction work to be done in Yuzhang City, and Miss Gu Xuanyuan's strength is not weaker than mine. How can normal sword bearers catch her? Sending her would just be a waste of time. In a few months, when I'm free, I'll look for her myself and see if I can find Miss Gu Xianyuan. Sword Immortal Ling Su waved his hand. Alright, you can go now. To be honest, I don't really want to see you again. You. The veins on third young Master Shi's face instantly bulged. Even an idiot could tell that Sword Immortal Ling Su was trying to brush him off. It would take a few more months before he could relax. Let's see if everyone has already forgotten about this matter after a few months. Thinking back to what Sword Immortal Ling Su had just said, Sword Immortal Ling Su didn't say that he was going to capture Gu Xianyuan. He only said that he was going to look for her. The meaning behind this was even more worth pondering. However, there was nothing wrong with Sword Immortal Ling Su's words. There were indeed a lot of things to be done in Yuzhang City, and now was not the time for Sword Immortal Ling Su to leave Yuzhang City. Third young Master Shi had nothing to criticize Sword Immortal Ling Su for. In the end, Third young Master Shi could only clench his fists and silently leave Sword Immortal Ling Su's office. Only now did he fully understand what his father's death meant to him. Come here for a moment. After third young Master Shi left, Sword Immortal Ling Su ordered a man in a suit and leather shoes to come in. Then, he pulled out a large pile of photos from his dimensional space and handed them to this man. When this man saw the contents of these photos, he couldn't help but tremble. His face turned bright red. These photos were all of beautiful young girls whose bodies had been modified to look like animals. Their behavior was also completely similar to that of animals. And in the photos, third young Master Shi was smiling in an exceptionally happy and perverted manner. Investigate all of this for me, Sword Immortal Ling Su said indifferently. Yes, the man replied. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.